I'd like to welcome you to the June 5th meeting of the Weare Board of Selectmen. If you would please stand, we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First thing on our agenda tonight is a discussion of the highway garage, and we have several people associated with that, a project manager, architect, company president here, and I'd appreciate it if you could introduce yourselves.
Sure. My name is Stacy Clark. I'm the president of Turnstone Operations.
Tony DeCosta, vice president of operations and project manager for Turnstone.
Jamie Need from Stone River Architects.
Okay. A couple of things to start with. First of all, we have a couple of public hearings scheduled, one for 7 and one for 7:30. Now, I got in contact with our attorney today as far as scheduling, and as long as we don't hold them earlier than the agenda specifies, then we're fine. So if we run over a little bit and have to move the public hearings ahead a few minutes, that's perfectly within our right, as long as we don't start them early. So that means that if we're not finished right at 7 o'clock with this, that we can go over a little bit. The other thing is that this is basically for a presentation to the board. So we will go through questions, but if there are questions from the floor, then I want them to go through the board. In other words, if you have a question, ask it from where you are. I will repeat it so that anybody at home who's listening can know what the question is that's being answered. But it's not a public comment section of the meeting. It's a presentation to the board concerning the construction project. So that will be the basic rule that I'll go by. If when we finish, if there's a question, funnel it through me. I will repeat the question, and then we will move on from there. So with that said, I have the questions that were asked at earlier meetings, and I know that people have seen them. People from Turnstone have seen them, and so I'm going to go through some of those, and so that they're on the record as far as verbal answers, as far as some of the answers that you've given to Naomi. I think it would be good to begin with if someone would kind of give the group an overview of how a design build process works, because that is, I think, kind of the key to this as far as we ended up with what we could or could not include in the project. So is there one of you who would tackle that?
Do you want me to just stand here?
Why don't you come up here, because then that way our vast audience at home, both of them will be able to hear you.
So this project was actually a design build, but it's a modified construction management design build. So we sit down with the town representatives and we talk through, we look at the RFP and we make sure that we include everything that was in the RFP. We also talk about needs. We went out and measured trucks. We measured equipment. We went through that process. We went through, I think, 3 or 4 different layouts, different types of buildings we looked at in terms of the structure. And then we put the documents out for budgeting, and then we go back to the drawing board again. And then we put each of the divisions out. So overhead doors went out to, say, 3 to 5 contractors, and people bid on the scope of work. Tony receives those proposals in the office. He reviews the scopes of work to make sure that it's apples to apples for each of the proposals that we receive, and we make a recommendation as to which subcontractor we should choose for the project. So does that clearly answer that? Or do we want to get into more detail?
Board members have any questions concerning what the design building is? There were some things here that were more specific than that. For example, I won't go in order, but there were questions concerning the garage doors. There were a concern, are the garage doors, because they're such an integral part of the building, of a commercial grade, and what does that mean as far as the types of rollers and mechanisms that operate those doors? In our original sketches that we presented at town meeting, it was a different design, as you know. But here with the multiple doors are an important piece as far as the insulation, as far as the quality. Could somebody run down that as far as the insulating factor of the doors, the mechanisms that control them, the tracks, and so forth?
So the question was, there were two questions actually. One was the gauge of the track, which standard, it is a commercial, all the overhead doors are commercial grade. They're not residential grade. The gauge of the track would be a 14 gauge. And the size of the rollers, the track being a 3-inch track, the size of the rollers, of course, would be a 3-inch roller. So that was the only question we had on overhead doors.
Do you have and I don't know if this question was asked, I just jotted it down because we've talked a lot about insulation. Is there an R factor to the doors?
There is. Just give me a second. So we have not awarded overhead doors yet. I mean, we're in the process of reviewing several manufacturers, but this one particularly is 15 for the R value. I do have two others that are slightly higher than that for the R value of the overhead doors.
So you would say a range from 15 to
15 to 17.
15 to 17? But you're just asking
yes.
me to speak up.
Sorry, yeah, 15 to 17 for the R value.
Okay. Any board members have questions on the doors? Okay. While we're on R factor, maybe you're the person to answer that as well, because there was a lot of question on the insulation. For example, the insulation under the pad, the type of construction, and the R factor of the insulating sheets underneath the floor.
Sure. So so under the entire slab is gonna have radiant heat. So there is gonna be a 2-inch rigid insulation under that slab. There was a comment about density, which is the compressive strength. So we are going with a 40 pounds per square inch, so 40 psi for the insulation. The R value is an R5 per inch, so a 2-inch rigid insulation would be an R10.
And what about the roof and sidewall insulation?
Sure, that comes from the pre-engineered building contractor. So the walls themselves are an R25, and the roof is an R43. And those two actually do supersede the code.
Okay. Now, I have the answer to this because we got it through an email, but just to remove any question. There was talk about 5 zones, but I guess there are 3 zones for the radiant heat in the floor. Is that correct?
Right. So we are we're in the process of finalizing the engineering. We had gone with 3 zones, just separating the building, You do have an office space, so that would be one zone, and then what we call the mechanics bay, which would be a second zone. And then the larger area where all the trucks are, where the 12 vehicles are, that would be a third zone. But we can easily modify that. We can take the large space, and from one zone, we can go to 2 or 3 and go to 5 zones. It's a non-issue on our side. Sometimes it's a preference, but because it's such a big open space, you know, you're not gonna turn zones down, because it's just one big open area, so we can go to 3, but we can go to 5 easily without any issues.
Would there be any benefit to the 5 as far as, for example, when I look at, and again, personally, look at the parking area for the trucks. To me, it seems one zone, you want the same temperature throughout it, right?
Correct.
That was your thinking.
Right.
So if you went to more zones, where would you put them?
Well, I mean, you can spread them out, but like I said, it makes sense to have one zone because you just have one big open space. So if you were going to zone it out, they're gonna offset each other. So that was the thought process behind the 3 zones.
Another question related to the radiant heat and the tank that in the present plans is located under the floor. There was a question concerning that if there's some problem with the tank, then are we going to get into a problem as far as disrupting the piping for the radiant heat to work on the tank?
Right. So the way we were going to approach it is where the tank is located right now. I think it's Bay 4A. The intent would be not to run any radiant heat over that tank. So we basically stay away from the tank a couple of feet, and we go around it. So if you did have to do something to that tank, you could easily cut the slab, remove it, and work on the tank or replace the tank if need be. We thought that through in case there was an issue, so you wouldn't cut into the radiant.
And the other question, we moved from the slab to the tank itself. There was a question as to why it was located under the floor and not on the outside. What was the thinking on that?
So the thought process was because of accessibility. So the tank is going to have to be emptied several times, depending on how much use you have or how much water you're going to be inside, whether it's washing or snow. Being inside the building, it'll be easy accessible. Outside in the middle of winter, I mean, stuff freezes up, and if you do need to empty the tank and you can't get to it because it's frozen, there's issues there. The other thing is we would have to we do both inside or outside would be an H20 load that a vehicle could drive on the covers, but we would recommend outside would have to put a slab over it to help with the tank itself. So there may be a little bit more cost associated with it, bringing it outside than it is inside, but the thought process was for accessibility, and if you needed to get in the tank for any reason, it's inside. You can have access to it fairly quick.
Waste oil tank, I think this was pretty straightforward because we got the answer earlier, but it is a double wall steel tank.
That's correct.
Now here's where there was some confusion, because somewheres in the discussion among people, there was mention of a dehumidifier to be installed in the building. And now I guess that's not the plan as far as controlling humidity. What is the plan for controlling humidity in the building?
Sure. There were discussions at the beginning, how do you go ahead and resolve the humidity? And humidity, of course, moisture, which is wintertime, snow melt. What do you do with all that moisture? So what we are proposing, which is actually one of the, from what I'm hearing, it's one of the standards that are following through the DOT garages that are going up. It's a heat recovery ventilator. So what the ventilator does is it'll open up when the humidity in the building goes higher than 50%. It'll bring in fresh air from outside. It goes through a heating element, so you're not bringing in, cold air from outside and dumping it into the building, and then it exhausts. There is an exhaust system which will work for that, for the humidity, but also it works if your carbon monoxide in the building exceeds a certain level. So basically those two units, they'll work, in conjunction to get the humidity down into the building. So that's the thought process behind it.
Any questions on the stuff we've covered so far?
How many gallons is the oil tank?
I believe, I want to say 1,500. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it was a 1,500 gallon tank.
The insulation for the roof and the sides, what kind of insulation is it?
It's the Optoliner, which is a system. I don't know if you get a chance, I could pass it around.
Yeah. That's one another.
You already did. Okay.
Didn't make its way here.
I made it, yes.
Didn't make it up here.
So you could pass this around. So what we try to do is, with that system, we try to, because we heard about the Hanaker building, and we made some pit stops to see how it was constructed, and that liner is actually what they have in Hanaker, which supersedes your standard, what we call a blanket, that just drapes and then it gets squished, which minimizes your R value. So this one here actually goes within the structural steel, which will give you a higher R value. And the liner basically makes it for a clean installation.
So we're talking about the insulation in the building?
Correct.
It's actually built into the steel of the building?
Correct. Once the steel is installed, the liner, on the roof, the liner goes in, and then the insulation gets built in between the structure of the building, and then they add an additional blanket on the roof before the roof goes on. So metals don't connect, and you don't have that thermal bridging.
So that helps with the humidity as well, as far as it keeps the humidity from building up in the insulation?
If you minimize the punctures of the liner, yes. But that's where you want to be able to have a system. That's why the mechanical system is going to take care of that the moisture. You don't want to have, the liner will sweat if you don't take care of the humidity. So regardless, if it's going to saturate the insulation, it'll get to the face of the liner and it'll just drip. So you want to make sure you avoid that by keeping the mechanical equipment operational and within the 50% relative humidity. That'll address that issue.
And the system you're proposing is the one that's being used in DOT garages?
That's what I was told by our mechanical contractor. Yes.
The big question that's been come up before us for the last few weeks was relative to a fire suppression system. And is there anything in here that can be changed or eliminated that would allow money for either the whole fire suppression system or any part thereof? And I know that discussion is one that you had in the construction meetings. is there anything on that that you could share with us?
The systems themselves, to take a system out and then bring another one in, you gotta save a few dollars, but not enough to get the fire suppression system back into the building. I mean, we did discuss it, we went back and forth, and one of the things was to get the system, the fire suppression system in the building, the only option would be basically to cut the building, take at least 4 bays out at a minimum. And that was something that was discussed, and it was decided that the building, the equipment would stay in the building. So there isn't enough in the systems to cut back to make up for the fire suppression system.
Just for information, Naomi did contact our Primex, our insurer, and the answer that we got, our rating model doesn't discount for features such as fire suppression system or not. So there would be no difference in the insurance premiums with or without the fire suppression system through Primex. That's just an aside of the discussion, because that did come up as a question. Now, the other suggestion that came forward, and I think, Benji, you kind of nixed this in a sense when you spoke earlier, but there was a suggestion of minimizing the impact if there were a fire by adding an additional firewall, say between the cutting the truck bays in half, separating the, 3? Are there 6 truck bays? Yes.
There's 6, right?
So it would be separating them into 2 additional sections with 3 each. The reason I brought Benji up, because I think there was a question about whether that would take space away from the maneuverability of your vehicles with an extra wall. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but
We'd have to stretch the building just enough. The building's been ordered. Do something else.
so it wouldn't be possible to just put that extra wall in without adding space to the ends of the building, or?
That's correct.
Okay. When the generator is installed, will the generator have the capacity to run a future fire suppression system? Another question.
No, the generator right now, it's designed just to take the load of the building.
Okay. And I guess a follow-up question that might be asked is, what would it take to, while the generator is being put in, to bring it up to that capacity? How many thousands of dollars more are we asking there? Do you have any idea?
I couldn't answer that right now, but you're talking having to change that generator to a larger. You're looking at almost doubling the size of the generator.
Okay. Other board members have questions related to the things we've discussed over the last couple of weeks?
What's the size of the generator you expect in there now?
I
KW?
believe it's say the 35 kVA.
You'd have to double that to meet the fire.
I believe the smallest was, let's say, was 80,
First guy said
75 to 80. Because your fire suppression, you'll have a fire pump.
Yep.
So it needs to take on the load of the fire pump plus the building. You can't just, I'm getting now into the engineering, which that's not it's my forte, but the code doesn't allow to have a generator that is large enough just for the building, and then if the fire pump needs to kick on, it shuts the building off and turns the pump on. It has to be designed to take on both. That's the simple way that was explained to me without going into too much detail.
I'm sure you've done, another highway building like this, so that maybe you can answer the question. It was brought up before that, in Henniker, that they don't have the wash bay units, okay, or the 2 bays, I think it is. It's 4, actually.
Yeah.
For the, wash bays, and they just had to empty the tank, once for just the, runoff from, the winter weather.
Mhm.
So what's gonna happen with these wash bays, and that's what, $4,000 to $5,000 a whack to do that. So what's gonna happen with the wash bays in there, and how much that's gonna be used, and what additional cost that the town can expect for that?
I mean, when I met with a road agent in Henniker, the way the building is set up, they do have the wash bays inside, and they do have a tank outside. I mean, how much they use, I'm not sure.
Oh, I didn't know that they did.
But it was designed for a wash bay too.
But I do think that the runoff was just for, you hadn't used the wash bays, from what I understand.
Yeah, I'm not sure
Okay, so
what
I
they.
guess-
We can't speak to how much a town may use or may not use. It's really, every town is going to be different, and it's gonna depend on how much the trucks are washed, which we have no control over.
Okay. Well, I guess they hadn't used it
Mhm.
for washing. They just had used it for the winter. And
Sure.
they have a lesser fleet than we do, so I guess my concern is, how much this is gonna cost us. So, I mean, it's something to keep in mind here.
Are there other members of the construction team who would like to add to anything that Tony has said concerning this, or to expand on anything? And do board members have other questions?
There was discussion on the radiant floor heat, the recovery. In your experience with buildings, commercial buildings this size, how has the recovery been on the heat loss when you throw all 12 doors open and drive the truck out?
I mean,
All 6 doors.
we haven't seen. I mean, the recovery is. I mean, we haven't had any complaints. Let's say, but I guess it all depends how quickly those doors open and close. But we haven't had any complaints. I haven't heard anything from other projects.
What's the temperature circulating in those tubes for that system?
I don't have the final design, so I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I can get back to you if you'd like.
That was a question was also brought up.
Okay. I can get that out.
I think that covers the questions that I had in advance from our other meetings. And as I said at the beginning, if somebody just came in, what I'd like to do is, if you have a question that hasn't been answered, then if you would ask me, I'll repeat it so that anyone at home who's watching will know what the question is, and then turn it over to the construction people. So,
I've got one more question, Tom.
yes.
There was discussion also in a couple of meetings about changing it from radiant to the modines, the propane on the roof.
Mm-hmm.
Your experience with that versus cost versus benefit?
It's what we did is we tried to follow the RFP.
Mm-hmm.
We did go out and try to get a design with propane. It wasn't cost effective. The radiant is because of the town's, that you guys collect the waste oil, and it's going to burn that oil. So it's, I won't call it free fuel, but that's where the marching orders to design the system the way it's set up right now.
It was a question that was brought up.
Do a heat loss on either one of them, doing it one way or the other, what it would be in that building?
The heat loss.
A heat loss average to see what it would be if you use a modine or infrared heater, suppose.
I could get you some calculations, but that would have to come through engineering. They'd have to run some calcs on the size of the building and give you kind of a picture, as to how often the doors are open and so forth. but I could definitely get that from engineering.
Tony?
Yep.
What do you do as project manager on the job? Are you there all the time, or are you?
No, our superintendent will be on site full-time.
Okay.
I'll be in the office, and I basically manage it from the office. I come to the meetings, meet with the owner, meet with the super, update schedules, review the budget, the GMP, I should say, make sure things are going smooth. I basically reach out to the contractors, get all their contracts ready, scopes of work, meet with the clerk, go through submittals, any questions that subcontractors may have between the contractors and our design team. So that'll be my job.
Okay, so then the clerk of the works would follow the plan and do the specs, follow the specs, is that, and make sure that
Correct,
the
I
specs
would
are
think, right, the clerk would, so the clerk of the works will get copied on all the submittals when they go out for review and when they come back,
Okay.
to make sure everything meets the specifications.
But you actually have your own superintendent there as well, correct?
Correct, right, we do have a super that'll be on site, you know, I wanna say 40 hours a week, but it never works that way, it's usually, 50 plus.
Now, will the superintendent assigned to the project be somebody that you wouldn't be hired for this project, but somebody who's a regular trusted employee?
Correct, yeah, he's been with us for a few years, and he's got plenty of experience.
He's done these buildings before.
Correct.
Okay.
Somebody have a question that hasn't been covered?
The drainage between the two buildings under the firewall.
One of the concerns, sorry, I didn't remember that, Tim, was that if there were a flammable material that got into the drainage system from the shop area, and that got into the tank, because it caused, a major problem as far as fire hazard. So the question is there anything in that drain system that
Would
prevent that from happening?
Yeah, it may be difficult to see, but what we did is, once the 3-hour wall went up, we separated the floor drain. So you do have a separate floor drain that is in the mechanics bay, and that's piped to the tank, separate from the one that's in the 6 bays, or I should say 12 bays, but 6 bays. So there's a separation between the two.
So it's not possible for that whole center drain to be filled with, be contaminated with something from the work area?
That's correct. There's a separation between the two.
Another question?
That firewall that was proposed, the second one, to divide the truck bays, was that proposed as a 3-hour wall?
No, 1 hour.
1 hour, okay.
Dick?
What phase are you in now? And a couple of questions.
Sure.
Related to process. The phase you're in now, where are you at? When did you get approval to proceed? There was a presentation made to the board by the clerk of the works a number of weeks ago. Have you received authorization to go ahead with the plan? And when was the decision made not to put fire suppression? And how was that decision made?
I'd like to try to repeat that if there were multiple parts. So could you just,
Well, yeah,
first part was,
like you, I'm getting old.
oh, I'm not getting old. I'm sorry, Dick, you are.
The first part, the first question, where are you in process?
So right now we're hoping to start Monday on site and getting ready to excavate for the footings and foundations of the building.
Have all the bids been received, approved?
Yes.
The question was, have all the bids been received and approved?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm repeating it
Sure,
for the
sure.
television. Okay.
And at what point in time do you have authorization, you apparently have authorization to proceed with this project?
We did. I'm not sure of the date, but it was at one of the meetings we did get authorization to proceed, and one of the things was to make sure that the building got ordered
From who did you get receive authorization?
from the building committee,
There is no building.
the owner's reps, I guess.
Who was it?
I don't know. Is it clerk of works approved?
I think it was,
My understanding is too, that we have a document tonight
Mhm.
to proceed with the building part, that the design part has been completed and the board signed off on that quite some time ago. And that tonight we will have the document to sign off on the beginning of the actual construction. Is that right, Naomi?
You have a document here that received when I wasn't here, which includes the, it's got the breakdown of the budget, it's got the, timeframe, the bond, and there's plans, but the plans are the large set of plans. This was the document that Jan spoke about when
Yeah.
I was not here.
Tom, Susan, you had mentioned that the design was approved some time ago. Did that design reflect no fire suppression?
the one that was approved, sorry.
The, I can't comment on that, Dick. What I was talking about was the approval of the design phase as far as paying for the design phase. And, that's
But
what
I
was
guess the
saying.
follow-up question, for the construction team that's here, and this has been on and off the warrant for 10 years, and fire suppression had always been brought up as an issue. This past, in 2016, the article passed, and the statements were made both in public as well as in at deliberative sessions that there would be fire suppression. You awarded the contract, I believe, in September.
Again, we're getting,
All right.
Nobody knows what you're
At what point in
saying.
time did you, the construction team, decide that fire suppression would not fit within the budget?
It was
the
in
question was, at what point in time did the construction team decide that the fire suppression system would not fit in the budget?
April.
Uh,
It was in April. I don't remember the date, but it was the first part of April.
Of what year?
This year.
This year.
2017.
This, if we go back on the timeline of this, we put out initial bids for this project after the 2016 town meeting, and we did not get sufficient bids in order to move forward. So they had to go out again in August, I believe. And this was the second round where we did have a number of bids, 4 or 6, I don't forget which it was now. And that's when we made the decision on a contractor at that time. And so the whole discussion and planning for the design and so forth, I believe started somewhere around October and has proceeded through the winter months. So that was the timeline as far as the bidding and the...
So the contractor didn't know until April that fire suppression wasn't going to be...
It wasn't enough money.
Again, the process, as I understand it, is that multiple requests for bids on different parts of the project had to go out to the subcontractors, and that information come back in before they could get a cost on the building. Am I following that correctly?
Yes.
Is that- And so I think the simple answer to your question is yes, it wasn't until...
This is my last question. What was the cost for fire suppression that came in through the bid process?
Do you remember?
For the fire suppression system alone, or just the whole if you were to put a fire suppression system in the building,
Yes.
including the generator and the addition?
The question asked was, what is the cost that was put forth for the fire suppression system by the
Complete.
subcontractor?
A little over 180,000.
When was that quote received?
It's either March or April, not quite sure of the date.
Yes, Lori.
I'm a little confused. I don't know who the building committee was. But more importantly, what I don't understand is the building committee, like the committee that was put together to originally come up with a design for this building, was never really a legal committee in the sense that we had to keep minutes. Therefore, none of the people involved in these committees have any legal authority to authorize or sign for any spending at all. The only people that have the legal authority to sign a contract, to okay expenditures, are the people sitting up at your table. And you can check with the Attorney General on that, and you can look at the RSA. So I want to know who gave the authorization to do all this, because I've never heard of it at a Board of Selectmen's meeting, and I'd like to know where all these authorizations are coming from.
I think that was already answered, but if not, then the board did approve the design phase. We signed off on that months ago. And as far as proceeding with the construction, I believe that's the document that we have before us tonight. Who was on that committee? It was the people from Turnstone, the town administrator, the Department of Public Works Director, and Mr. Fillmore, who was representative from the other committee. And I don't know, did you sit on some of those, Jack, or not?
I just went to the first one.
Just the first one. Okay. So that was, and it was the committee to work on the design of the building, basically. I don't know if that answers your question. That's who was on the committee. Other questions?
There was a design contract, a design approval that you gave?
Thank you.
What board?
We signed the go-ahead on the initial phase of this project, which is the design phase. Is that correct, Naomi?
Yeah, and you've also approved all the payments for the $84,000 that we spent to date, so.
I realize it's a different board.
No, okay, that's what I was
Yeah.
asking,
It's a different
basically, because I
board.
know it wasn't, I didn't see anything.
No, well, it would have been months ago.
Last fall.
Unfortunately, it wasn't in any of the minutes.
Does anybody else have a question related to the questions that have come up in the past, or another one related to the construction process? Eldon?
There was talk about, the RFP meeting everything, again relating back to the fire suppression. Why can't we eliminate 4 bays to get safety back into the building, and instead of, side casting 4 bays, just don't concrete the floor, don't insulate it, just leave it as an empty shell for now, weather tight, and then in the future add on to it while we have fire suppression in the existing garage. You mentioned 4 bays was the only way that we could cut costs to get close to it. And the other way to maybe cut even more costs, has it really been looked into in different heat costs to get there? Radiant is, as I've known, is expensive to put in. I think those two things combined, I think would get us close to, if not having, our fire suppression.
We take those,
eliminating some square footage for the initial fire suppression, but in the future build, you could build in the additional square footage for the fire
you
suppression.
have two parts to your question there, and I think one part perhaps could be answered by the contractor, and that is concerning the different heat options. But as far as the question of whether or not we want to change the design of the building and all this, that really would rest with this board to make that decision. And also, the building has been ordered.
Which we can still put it up. You just, the 4 bays on the end, you don't finish it, just leave it as a weather-tight shell, dirt floor, don't concrete it, and concentrate on the rest of it. As soon as we get one more truck, we outgrew that building. So that can happen within a year or two. Like I said, we collect more trucks and we get rid of them. So, to me, it just doesn't make sense to not have fire suppression in the building. I think that's a very viable way of getting it back in.
There's a question there, somewhere.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what the question was, because I understand your opinion, I've heard that,
Yeah,
you know, and
yeah.
I'm not trying to be,
Can we, I mean, why can't we go backwards and, you know, look at to just closing in the N4 and not finishing it off? Why can't we do that?
Building savings.
To get the
Building
fire
savings.
suppression back in? Why can't we backstep a little bit?
If you're saying to just build the shell and not put the concrete in, that's pennies. You would not have those 4 bays. It would
Correct.
You'd have 4 trucks sitting outside, not like undercover, it'd be outside.
That's fine.
8 trucks, you'd have 8 trucks sitting outside, 2 to a day. Take 4 bays out.
When I mean 4 bays, are the last two.
No.
6A, 7A, 7B, and 6B, that's 4 bays.
Yeah, and there's
Right.
2 trucks to a bay.
2 trucks a
right?
bay.
No.
You're talking 2 doors.
Gotcha.
2 doors, there's
Oh, okay.
All right.
there's 4
Same
trucks.
plan.
I think
Right.
that has to be clarified by the contractor. Tony, you said to do that, you'd have to cut 4 bays. Is that 4 doors out of the 6? Or is that?
me,
No,
that's Bay
that's 2 doors.
6A, Bay
3 doors?
7A,
2 doors.
7B,
Okay,
2 doors.
so 2 doors.
so you take 4 trucks.
It's just the concrete, you'd be out.
well, again, I think that decision would come back to this board. Personally, I would vote against it.
But to get the fire suppression back in, it wasn't even looked into.
We're gonna
As an
sprinkle those 2
option.
bays?
Pardon me?
Would those 2 be sprinkled then?
No, just leave it as dead space for now, and then
You
in
can
the
park it,
Trucks
but
are
you
gonna
can't
be
sprinkle.
parked there.
not when it's closed off. When you close
Trucks
it
will
in,
still be parked on that same roof.
Benji, this here is
You wanna
all
put that on
closed in
pallets?
tight. Huh?
Want to put that part of the building on pallets then?
What do you mean a building on pallets?
Just
Well,
don't,
we don't build it, we gotta do something with it, it's coming.
It's gonna be built, the shell will be there.
The shell
we're gonna
there.
sprinkle the
What's the
shell?
shell? No,
With 4 walls on it,
Yeah.
or 3 walls.
yeah.
So what's the difference if they're parked under a roof and they catch on fire, it's a concrete?
I think you're missing the point, Ben.
I guess so, because there's 4 trucks parked under there,
It
whether it's
wouldn't be
outside
if
or
it-
inside,
If it's not finished,
right?
it wouldn't be a used building.
So you wouldn't be putting doors on
It
it?
would not be,
I'm gonna put a roof
no,
on it.
just
Well, I
close it
still need a
in.
roof to park trucks under, because the truck bay is going away, truck shed.
Well, the point here, again, it comes back to a decision that
Yeah.
I think of the board here, and it's not something that the contractors are really in a position to answer, because it's it would be a board decision as far as whether to alter the plan of the building as such. I really wanted to stay away from the debates as a question and answer period while they're here. Dick?
Well, just to pick up on what you said, it's a decision the board will make, based on just the town's sake. Are the contractors willing to say, yeah, okay, we'll drop 4 bays? It seems like, Tom, that when you said we approved the design, You approved money to have a design made.
That's
You
right.
didn't approve the design.
Exactly.
You haven't approved the design. You have up in front of you, I guess, a contract for construction, which is different than the design. You know, to me, you know, this should have been done months ago, or a month ago. It's, you've gone beyond, I mean, the contractor, I'm assuming, is committed to this building. I asked them earlier if they have received permission, authority to go ahead with it, and they said yes, so they think they have. The board hasn't even approved it. Haven't approved the design and haven't approved the construction. Two separate things. So, I'm confused, and I'm not sure if the contractor is sitting there saying, oh, this is great, because they think it's been approved. That's why they're proceeding with it. Anyway. There's no question.
Okay. Any other contractor-related questions?
Yeah, I have one.
Yes.
You said that the storage tank is 1,500 gallons. Has anybody done calculations to estimate how much waste oil is going to be needed to heat that building through a winter season?
The question was related to the size of the tank, 1,500 gallons, and whether it's been calculated as to how much waste oil it will take to heat the building for the season. I don't know whether that would be a question related to the design people, or whether that would be one related to how much we're using now, Benji. Maybe a little of each.
Might be apples to oranges to what we're using now.
Yeah, I've asked that question. I don't know if anybody has that system that I know of. The point of using it is it's free fuel. If for some reason we ever got a drastic, you know, the building got doubled and we got a terrible winter and you had to buy a little supplemental fuel, that's cheaper than going with a complete different heating source where you're buying all of it. So I guess the answer to the question is no. The question has been asked. The answer to the question is no.
I mean, with the
I can tell you we use about half of what we produce now, so I hope it does use more than our current use.
what's our current capacity to hold?
Well, we got more tanks now.
Go out and count the oil barrels.
Yeah, I gotta say the barrels and.
I mean, the transfer station puts it 55-gallon drums, and I bring it down on pallets, and we have my tank in the shop, I think it's a 300 or 400-gallon tank, and I had, no longer there, 3 500-gallon tanks outside. All the 55-gallon drums. Sometimes we have to have a company from a particular way.
Right.
That
Because
was,
it was asked and suggested to me that we go with a different heating source because the boiler's cheaper, but for the town's sake, I could, free fuel is free. I mean, it's saving the town money, I would think, in the first couple of years. In addition to waste.
In the old building might have been an R4 total. Right, so now we've got all this insulation factor.
If it burns double what we have now, I have enough fuel. And if you gotta buy one tank full of meat oil or off-road diesel fuel in the winter, it's cheaper than buying propane or pellets.
if people have comments that are not questions for the contractor, we will have a public comment section later in the meeting. But for right now, I'd like to close out this portion of the meeting. Question.
I just have a quick question on the gentleman's, how is 1,500 gallons big enough? The real question is, how much do we need to store in an annual year before we stop using it? And how much do we get? I mean, the total storage, like 2,000 gallons of used spent oil a year that we potentially have.
For the total year?
I mean, if you have to store everything, 2,000 gallons?
We went 12 months longer than that. But we probably store close to that for the summer, and then continue for the oil.
I guess to this gentleman's point, is 1,500 gallon large enough to store the capacity before we start using it?
No.
I think that's the valid question.
Keep in mind that because of the zones, this large area where the trucks are part can be a lesser temperature than those in the work area and the office area. And as was already mentioned, the R factor in this building is going to be so much different than the building that it was in. Sherry?
Is it possible to put the 1-foot firewall in through the middle of the building? If you take a foot off the end where the offices and the work area is?
So you would leave the dimensions of the building the same,
I'm just,
the outer dimensions the same,
right,
but look at possibly
It's gotta be
moving.
basically on a column line in between two trucks. So changing the other end of the building doesn't change your relationship with trucks to the center line. It's steel. We have to increase it on that.
Mhm.
Doesn't really affect it. Any changes on the other end doesn't where you want it.
what you're saying is you have to have a wider space in between the 6 bays, where the 6 doors are. You'd have to have one area in there wider, a wider
One of the
gap.
structural bays would need to be
A foot
wider.
wider or a foot and a half wider.
Ideally, split it between two of them, so it's not all in front.
Okay,
There is, we're very tight right now, so.
I'm looking for questions that haven't been asked. Tim?
For the drain, for the runoff, we would think a primary tank going into the larger tank would catch some of the oily effluent. Therefore, when we had a tank pumped out, we wouldn't have toxic contaminants, because it's a lesser price to just get the salt water, the runoff water out. If we had a baffled smaller tank, say 500 to 1,000 gallon, with a larger baffle, it would catch the oil films, the grease.
The question had to do with whether or not should be a
Primary, secondary tank.
yeah, primary, secondary tank with one tank being related to the work area and one be related to the parking area.
Yeah, so, our experience is because of the drains, I mean, the vehicles are gonna be parked regardless, they're gonna get washed. So,
We need to approve this tonight.
I'm not a code enforcer, but
You can give me or
the
he
water
can sign
coming
it.
off
I'll
one
really
drain and the other would be the same, whether you separate it or not.
I realize
It's
that.
classified as the same.
But what I'm saying is, if, I'm thinking in reference to like a leach field, you have a tank with a solids go, and it'd be a baffled tank prior, and this would catch the oil films and whatnot, and the most toxic of this would all stay in one tank. So we could pump off 500 gallons for a higher amount, and then pump off 5,000 gallons for a lesser amount.
Again,
Because it's a 5% toxicity rate that they jack the price up.
the
Contamination rate.
question was whether there would be a primary tank versus the other one, and the answer to that would be no.
Right.
Again, this will all appear in the minutes. Any other?
Look into seeing what that would cost.
Any other fresh questions? There being none, I want to close off this portion so we can move on because we're about 30 minutes behind on our first public hearing. But last call, if you have another question. Okay, I want to thank you for coming and, yes,
The, as I understood it, that auxiliary firewall that I proposed, that was gonna be $20,000.
About that.
for the wall itself, but it doesn't accommodate the fact that there's not room to put it there. That's my understanding. Without adding on to the end of the building, there wouldn't be room to put it in. Is that correct?
Because that's gonna save $3 or $4 million worth of trucks. I'd rather have a third of it burned down than all of it.
Again, without public comment at the end, you're welcome to say that at that time. So we're gonna move on with the next item on the agenda.
You want
Yeah.
to do this so they can take that with them? That's the document for it's been waiting here since April, when I was out.
This is the final build, right?
That's the time frame you've all seen.
No, but this is the final.
That's the
build
final, yep,
Where was it?
136.
Where was it?
Where was what? You guys see that? Somebody passed that around long before I had it.
What's that?
You guys passed that sheet around long before I saw it.
The timeline.
The timeline,
This is the
Oh,
timeline.
the time.
the timeline,
Okay.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, I think.
yeah, I wasn't here.
Right.
That I went.
But this is the actual.
I'm just saying. You wanna take it up now and move on?
Why don't we wait until the end of the meeting? So
Okay.
that the board members have a chance to discuss it? rather than
Right.
Okay,
trying to
sure, no
charge
problem.
it at this time?
Oops. That's all right. All right, that's fine, we can do that too.
What was that? What was the paperwork that they just received?
It was just a building permit application.
Building permit.
I don't know.
No, they left it, Chip left it in my mailbox to give to them, because he knew they were coming. Thank you. Oh, Jamie. Is that mine? Or is that yours?
We'd like to keep it. We pay for it. Do we have it? We pay for
I did see Karen. I don't know if she's still in the hallway.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's around out there.
Back and forth.
Okay, when is the plan?
Oh, here she comes.
Here she is.
Yep. Tom, would you state the time when you open the public hearing, please?
Okay.
You know what, that's
Time
gonna be
open
obnoxious when I
public hearing
kid.
to hear public testimony and comments regarding changing Chase Park fees.
7:32.
And the hearing opens at 7:32.
That kid's gonna be obnoxious. Karen? Yeah. I have extra sets of copies. Did you make some? Yep. I gave the board copies.
Okay.
Do you have some for anybody that wants any? Anybody that wants copies of the proposed Chase Park fees?
I'd like to, as we go through, clarify a few
Yeah.
things as far as comparing the present fees to the new ones. So this is the sheet you're working with there?
Anybody else? Chase Park fees?
No.
Same as you.
You got it.
Don't lose that document. I need it signed.
I would suggest we go right down this sheet and so
Sure,
pointing out which ones are going to stay the same and where the changes occur.
of course. All right, so, we're proposing that the parking permit for a resident, and actually, they probably won't notice a change. In the past, it's been a $10 seasonal pass. If a resident wished to go in just for the day, it would be a $5 day pass. So we're actually increasing the $5 day pass to $10. So you might as well get a season pass if you're a resident, you know. So that in itself is changing. The $2 additional card is staying the same. The boat ramp fee for a resident for a boat or jet ski is $20.
Which is the same.
It's the same, yep. Seniors 60 and over,
That has changed a little bit. We're looking at one free car pass and one free boat pass. In the past, it was two. Anything over the one boat, if you have an additional boat, you're subject to the $20 fee for like a regular boat would be. For veterans, that's an addition this year, where we'd like to extend a free car pass to any veteran resident, with any additional car being a $2 season pass. And then also a reduction to $15 per boat or jet ski. That's for one boat. Any additional boat, like the seniors, would be a $20 season pass fee.
But
Does that make sense?
just for clarification, it says $15 per boat. Probably it should say for the first boat,
Okay.
because if it's per boat, then it would apply for the second boat.
The second
as well.
boat, yeah, gotcha.
I don't know how many people, well, I guess boats and jet skis, that's gonna say, I don't know how many multiple boats.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't really know how many people, how many residents have more than one boat going, but.
Could we back up to the seniors? I
Yep.
mean, you know, just, not that I have a stake in this at all, but, does that mean that if a person, for example, has a car and a truck, that one is free and the other one costs $10?
Two. Is it?
Or two, or what?
Well,
Oh,
yeah,
that's right, too.
I guess we could apply the $2.
Yeah, I was thinking,
The $2. So you want clarification there as well?
Probably some clarification.
Yep.
there, yeah. Okay, sorry for the interruption, I
Nope,
just wanted to clarify as we went
absolutely.
along.
Yep. So for non-residents, we're looking at parking access at $10 a car per day. And that is up $5 from what it was originally. The boat ramp access is $30 per boat or jet ski per day. That hasn't changed. Senior non-residents, 60 plus, they would gain access at $5 a car per day, which is a $5 discount. And then $20 per boat or jet ski per day, which would be the same as a resident, but a $10 discount for a non-resident. Veterans would gain the same benefit as a senior, at $5 per car parking per day, and then the $20 boat jet ski per day.
Okay. It's a public hearing, we're open for comment.
Do we go up there or?
Yeah, no, come up here now. This,
Go ahead.
public hearing. The other was not a public hearing.
I didn't hear the reason why
Reason why what?
these changes are being put in place.
They're being put forth by the Parks and Rec Commission.
I said why. I want to know why. Let me just read something, if you don't mind. This is from Local Government Center. A fee is part of the regulatory process. It's something that the Board of Selectmen establishes. It's not a revenue-raising process. In order to be valid, a fee must be a relation to and approximate the cost of the expense of performing the service. So I'd like to know what the cost of the expense is in performing the service at Chase Park. And I'd like to know what the impact of these changes will be relative to the cost of those expenses.
Well, I don't think that we have explored that part of the increases as opposed to the cost for the park. I can tell you that we are allotted, I think it's $17,000 for employees' wages for the season. And we barely break that with the revenue coming into the park. That would go right into the general fund anyways. So, above and beyond the wages, I mean, we have expenses over there as well for supplies, lifeguard training, et cetera, et cetera. So I think, you know, any increase, if you're putting it that way, you know, would kind of even things out. And in the future, we're also looking to have all the funds go into a revolving account so that we could improve so that we can improve the area over there or any other parks that we have in town.
First of all, a revolving fund is not be used as a part of a capital. Revolving fund, as you know, is a fund that basically covers the cost of the service that you provide. A revolving fund for police department, for patrols, not patrols, but for the duty that they do, off-duty stuff. And that covers the cost of paying the officers. So a revolving fund is not applicable. Apparently, it sounds like.
I think the term that you're looking
Capital
for
Reserve
is
Fund.
special revenue fund,
There you go.
which means that it would be put aside for future improvements to the park at the will of the voters at the town meeting. So that would be, it wouldn't be a revolving fund, it would be a special revenue fund.
So I'm not even sure if you can do that legally, but, and that brings up a major concern. A major concern is that they're gonna just increase the rates over there. So they get more money into the fund, so they really can accumulate money. And then when they go to the voters, say, hey, we already got the money, approve it, you know? Rather than go to the voters like they've been for the past few years, unsuccessfully. So it's a way to get around the voters, I believe. But apparently I would urge the board not to approve this because they can't demonstrate that what the cost is that they're trying to cover. Now, she had mentioned that $17,000 for salaries or something to that effect. Well, the amount of revenue they bring in from Chase Park is $19,000. I would think the salaries are probably the one that's probably most reasonably to assume that it covers that that's the cost of running Chase Park. I'm sure there are other things. As far as, and I don't know what those costs are, I'm assuming they don't know. But if you're gonna approve rate changes or fee changes, I think you should approve them based on need. Identify what the cost is. Make sure you're not using it as some kind of a bank, which it sounds like would be done if you're gonna try and make it into a special revenue fund, which is dangerous. You know, any money that they get down there should cover the cost of operational service, operational costs, not to use that money to build up in a fund for something that we don't even know what it is. So I'd urge the board not to approve this because they really haven't demonstrated the need to increase the rates.
Lori Davis. I have no objections to seeing rate increases. After all, we're the taxpayers using it. Where I do have an objection is I don't understand why if a resident wants to get a day pass, they're going to be paying $10 a day, if I'm reading this correctly. But you're telling me a non-resident who doesn't pay taxes, who you're not going to get any money from to work on this park, is going to pay the exact same as a resident. To me, that's wrong. Non-residents should be paying more than residents. They're not paying taxes to keep this park going. You need to raise the non-residents.
I just think can I just say, I think you have a choice when you go in as a resident. Maybe I'm wrong. I've never been to the park in years. But if you want to go in and get a pass, it's your right to get a daily pass, but for $10 you can have a season pass. So that's your right as a resident. If you're only going to come here once.
Exactly.
But you could still get a sticker for your car just in case 2 months from now you want to come back. That's a daily seasonal pass is $10 as well.
That's what we would urge you to do. You know,
Yeah.
if you come in as a resident, we'll just hand you a sticker for your car if you're going to pay the $10.
Right.
You know, if you say, I'm never coming back here again ever, and then we'll charge you the $10 anyway. You know,
Kind of go back up a little bit, go backwards here. With response to this lady said, well, might as well pay, if I'm gonna pay $10 in regards to the daily pass, we're gonna pay $10 for a day, might as well pay $10 for a season pass. Well, there's some logic to that, but if I have my grandkids here for, well, I can't say me because somebody's gonna say, well, you're over 60, and I am. But if I was 50 years old and I had my grandkids here for, a day, say, well, let's go to the lake for 4 hours, 2 hours before 12, a couple of hours after 12, we'll go there for lunch. It's gonna cost me $10, And she can say, yes, all right, well, pay $10 for a season pass. I won't go to the lake for the rest of the year. I think it's excessive. And another person touched on it. I think some of this is really, in fact, you stated yourself, expenses, and you'd like to have an account to build up. I liken that to the hazardous waste account, the hazardous waste expense that is now in the budget. The selectmen have the opportunity to increase that to whatever amount they want, irrespective of how much they're gonna spend. If they're gonna spend $6,000 a year for hazardous waste, now they can budget for $10,000 for hazardous waste, or 15, or 20, or 25, and nobody's gonna know the difference. One selectman might say, well, that's cheap money. I don't say that. The question that I have, I see highlighted many times, or stated many times, boat or jet ski, boat or jet ski. Vehicle registration required. Well, I don't have a boat, I don't have a boat, and when I think of boat, what is the definition of a boat? Is it a boat with an oar? Is it a boat with a paddle? Is it a boat with a fishing motor? Is it a boat with a 250 horsepower motor? What is
Definition.
Ask her what the definition of a
I've
boat
heard
is.
is it's a hole in the water into which one pours money.
I'll remember that come budget season.
Our definition of a boat is anything that comes in on a trailer.
Okay,
So really what you're doing is getting your trailer
okay, well, I have a canoe.
that you put on the back of your truck.
I put it in the bed of the truck,
Okay. Then all we'll ask you to do is inspect it before it goes in the water.
okay? And I'm saying myself personally, other people have canoes, and I think that was all. But I just caution the selectmen to, one selectman said in a previous presentation of fees, well, again, that's cheap money as compared to other parks, other towns, et cetera. Well, we don't necessarily have to be like other state parks or like other towns. We should do what we need to do for the residents of this town. That's all. Thanks. Thank you.
Just a clarification on this again, because this sheet has the old rates on it, correct? The one that was on.
That's on the
The one that's
website.
online.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was nothing on it as far as a day pass for residents. It had a day pass for non-residents, but there was nothing there for residents' day pass.
Yeah, I know that they defaulted to the non-resident day pass.
So they just defaulted to it
When someone
because
came in.
any day pass was $5.
Yeah, to my knowledge, that's the way it's been since I
Okay,
came
just
on.
wanted to clarify what, other comments?
Question for Karen. If I bring my kayak in, am I charged?
Not like
As a boat.
Not a boat.
My canoe?
Not, if it comes in on a trailer, you get charged.
If it comes in inside my car or on my car roof, it doesn't get
You
charged.
should not be charged.
Or just inspect.
You
Just
can
inspect.
Inspect it before it goes
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
water.
On the trailer?
Same.
Public hearing is still open. Anyone else?
How do you verify the veterans?
Identification, I don't know if there's a certain veteran's ID that a veteran would receive.
I just wondering if you're looking at the plates, some of them the veteran had it on,
I'm not super knowledgeable. Does anybody have knowledge? Do you get like a veteran ID card or?
Well, if you register, if you're a veteran, you can get a veteran's number plate. I mean, I don't know what else is out there. So it has to run through it would have had to run through the town clerk to get a veteran's
Get a
plate or the
veteran's plate,
state.
yeah.
That's
I
one of
don't
the things
know.
we'll have to discuss.
Right, I don't know that.
But it does say
And that's true.
identification confirmation required. We'll have to figure out what that requirement is.
Yeah, I don't know.
Donna, would you like to?
No, I'm just saying, veterans card, my dad had a card, says veterans right on it.
Yeah, master card.
Hmm.
The driver's license doesn't have that.
I have no idea.
identification on it.
No.
I'm not aware.
Anyone else? Frank again?
Just for point of information, you can have a veteran's plate, which has nothing to do with the town clerk. It's all at the state. And I know that for a fact because my wife and I are both veterans, and we just got veteran plates last Wednesday. So it's all done through the state. I had veterans ID card, and I had to do my license at the same time, as Jack knows, because he was there.
I thought they were suspending it when I saw you there.
To keep an eye on me.
There is a veteran's ID.
And that's done through the VA, and you can have veterans and the ID, they call it something else.
The real ID? Is that
No,
what they call it?
no, no.
No, there's a
The-
veteran's
The
ID.
veterans
Branch of
thing
service.
on your license.
Oh.
So, but that, and the only reason I'm saying that, it's a very good question to ask. I'm surprised before you ask for money or not ask for money, you should have, know ahead of time how you're gonna identify people. Kinda like you're putting the, cart before the horse.
But you get your veteran plate through the state, but you have to start here, don't you?
Correct, but.
So in
it's-
order to qualify for your veterans, we wouldn't
It-
send you to the
it's-
state if you didn't come here.
Well, you come here because you do the registration.
Correct, but you wouldn't go to
But-
Concord to do,
You ha-
I'm just saying you had to qualify whatever you had to show to get your veterans portion to go to the state, correct?
No. No.
That's interesting.
You have to bring a DD 214
Okay.
and,
I'm just saying, because there's a lot of things we do here at the town clerk that you have to go to the state for, but you always have to start
right, no,
here,
you
so.
come in and get your registration the way
That's
you
fine.
would, and then you go to
Okay,
the
I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
just don't put a plate
Because-
on it until you bring the paperwork to Concord.
Okay.
Show them the DD 214
Right, okay,
and your
just like an
proper
antique,
ID, and
yeah,
they'll turn around and give you the plate.
okay,
Well, then
that's all.
Frank, we could really use your help then.
Mhm.
You know,
Well, it was a learning experience for me, so I wouldn't have been any help to.
come over to a meeting, you can help us out.
So we know now how we can identify that.
There are a number of ways.
Yeah.
Any other comments in public comment? If not, I'll close the public hearing at 7:52. And we
We're
will,
gonna do it at the end.
Glad to say.
No, I don't think, she has to ask if she has to stay, because you're gonna move on to the next public
no,
hearing.
because we're going to move on to the next public hearing, and we'll go back to this at the end of the meeting for board discussion.
Okay. And then Naomi can let me know what goes on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Night.
At this time, I'll open a public hearing to hear public testimony and comment on an employment contract for the position of police chief.
If it's okay with you,
I have copies, should I do you? No, he's gonna sit out in the hall. Do you, everybody get a copy?
Yep.
Okay. Did you give it time?
Yes, I did.
He has not opened it yet. Did you open it?
Yes, I did, and we'll make it 7:54.
54. Do you have one?
Yeah, I know I do. There.
Okay, I have some extras here. I have extra ones here.
This is the one. She also sent it.
Sorry, Peter. No, he's just looking. He's just listening.
Be right with you. Want to stay organized. Okay.
Good evening, Neil Kirk, Mount Dearborn Road. May I ask who drafted this contract?
It was drafted based on, pretty much on the old one. The wording was drafted by the chief. We sent it to our attorney. We agreed on the monetary parts of it at a previous board meeting.
And I take it that you're holding this public hearing because you can still change the contract?
We can do that.
Yes, so this is not just a waste of everybody's time. You can actually make changes if you wish to do so.
We, again, like with the previous public hearing, we'll go back to this for discussion at the end of the meeting.
Page 2, Section 3, duties, the last line, police who will service until such time. I think that word service probably should be serve.
I'm sorry, you just read where you are.
Page 2,
Yes.
Section 3, duties.
Mhm.
3 paragraphs. Last paragraph, last line. The line starts, police who. The word service should probably be serve.
Thank you.
Okay. Section 4, hours and work schedule. The chief shall maintain, the first paragraph, the chief shall maintain a log of hours worked and will produce such log upon request of the Board of Selectmen. You folks should know that the New Hampshire retirement system is under legal obligation to obtain information from towns about all part-time employees. So I think you might want to add some language here at the end of that first paragraph that says, and fulfill all informational obligations required of the town by the New Hampshire retirement system. Otherwise, you may find yourself not able to get from the chief the information which you are obligated to give to the retirement system.
Do you have that name?
No. I got and fulfill all.
The wording that you.
I'll give you this copy later.
See, I wanted to change it to a weekly basis anyway, rather than him keeping it.
Well, we,
Yeah.
we do keep track of it now.
No, I understand, but I'm not sure of exactly what information the retirement system is requesting. And you need to make sure that you can get that information from the chief. That's the only point. Page 3, termination. Last paragraph. The chief has to provide 45 days notice if he's going to leave during the term of the contract. But on page 1, under term, you have to give the chief 8 months' notice if you're not going to extend the contract. That seems a little lopsided.
May I explain the reasoning behind that?
Sure.
Because, our long-term goal is to go to a full-time police chief. And we're looking at 8 months as an approximate amount of time to advertise the position, go through the process of selecting a police chief. So that's why it's in there as 8 months, because we feel that is the point at which we will start the process of selecting a full-time chief, and that we want the chief to be involved in that process because of the policies that have been established over his tenure here. But that's one of the reasons that that's in there.
But you still want him only to give you 45 days notice and not 8 months notice?
Well, we'll take your input and discuss it as
Understood.
we get further on into the meeting.
On page 3, section 5, outside employment, the last paragraph. If the chief attends these other obligations, CALIA, University of New Hampshire, university system, and takes time off, because it says the town agrees to allow the chief to take reasonable time off, is that with pay?
That doesn't count toward his 32 hours a week.
So he wouldn't be paid for that?
That's my understanding. We can clarify it. But let me just clarify something concerning UNH. It's like 2 days a year, where traditionally he's been doing a detail there for the graduation and so forth. That was in his other contract, and it was a matter of being able to continue that practice. And we clarified that UNH retirement system is not part of the general retirement system, so it didn't count toward the 32 hours.
Understood, but I would hope that when he takes the day off to go to UNH, we don't pay him for the amount of time he's there and have that count towards his 32 hours.
That's right.
Salary on page 4. At $90,000 a year for a 32-hour week, you're paying the chief the equivalent for a 37.5-hour week of $105,300 a year. That is an outrageous rate of pay for a full-time chief, and therefore for $90,000 for a part-time chief for the town of Weare. I appreciate the fact that we get a great deal of insurance assurance from Chief Kelly that, in point of fact, some of the problems we've had in the past, which have cost us dearly, are less likely to occur. But I think that you can get that same level of assurance for a much lower price. We're paying our fire chief $60,000 a year for a part-time 30-hour week. We're paying the police chief $90,000. I really think that this is an excessive amount of money for this town. The second paragraph under salary, employees' pay increases are limited to this increases. I think the word this is probably the, but it's not clear to me what increases he's getting.
I'm sorry, could you go to the page again so we can...
Sure. Salary,
yes.
$90,000 a year, and then it says in the second paragraph, he's paid according to the town's regular schedules for other police department employees. He shall not be eligible for any additional pay increases granted to other police department employees, including union and non-union. And employees' pay increases are limited to, I assume it's the increases specifically set forth herein. There are no specific increases that I can find in this agreement. The only thing I could think of that you might be referring to is if all non-union town supervisory employees got a 3% increase, then the chief would get a 3% increase. If that's your intention, you better get the language straight, because I pulled that out of thin air. I don't find any language in the agreement that talks about that.
That is
so
it would be part of the pool.
Right.
There would be no written increase in the contract.
You might want to do that, or change that language. And then the third paragraph is rather interesting. The provision of salary and benefits are at all times subject to action at the Weare town meeting. If town meeting in any year covered by this agreement do not authorize payment of salary and benefits in accordance with this agreement, the employee shall be entitled to severance for the balance of the unpaid compensation, including salary and benefits, at the rate described elsewhere in this agreement. I don't understand that, but it seems to me as though, if I read it correctly, you're totally negating the ability of the town to eliminate this position, because it would appear that if the town eliminates the $90,000 for the police chief, this agreement requires the selectmen to pay him anyway. So I always thought town meeting was the place where the town made decisions, and yet you're taking, this paragraph seems to take away the ability of the town to make those decisions.
Again, we'll review that section.
Under vacation, the chief could accrue a total of $10,368 at the time he leaves on December 31st, 2019, if he follows the provision here and doesn't use all of his pay. if he uses only half of his, uses only half of his vacation. If he did that, according to this agreement, you would have to cut him a check for $10,368 at the end of the term of this agreement. Page 5, equipment. The town agrees to provide the chief with a fully equipped police vehicle for official business, including for those days and hours when the chief is not scheduled for duty. Does this mean that the chief is still going to be able to use his police vehicle for commuting at town expense?
That does mean that.
You understand, or you'll recall that the Finance Committee was rather upset by that excessive benefit. Second paragraph, I think, says that you provide the chief with a cell phone, which he can use for business and personal purposes, on duty or off duty. Multimedia capable mobile communications device for conducting official town business while on or off duty.
I think that more so meant when he was at home and he got a phone call from one of the officers.
But he couldn't use it to schedule a dinner for himself and his wife.
That was not the understanding.
Okay. Benefits, page 5, this is section 11, benefits, the second paragraph. The chief shall be eligible for all other benefits now and in the future provided to all full-time non-bargaining unit employees. Does this mean that in addition to his $90,000 salary, if he should have health insurance from some other source through his wife or whatever, through the state, that he would be able to take advantage of our, what is it, $8,000?
$5,500.
The buyout? He would be able to do that?
Yes.
Yes.
And that's intentional?
That's in his present contract.
Yes, I understand that, but don't you think that's generous? Overly generous? That means he's making $98,000 a year.
It's 55, not
55.
5,500? Okay, 95,500. I stand corrected. Section 13, general expenses, reasonable business-related expenses. What struck me was that any proposed expenditures which exceed $2,000 must be previously approved. So the chief could undertake a series of $1,500 or $1,000 reasonable business-related expenses, and the town would pick those up? And there's money in the budget to cover that? I'm just raising the question. I don't know the answer. In addition to the questions I've raised and some of the comments I've made, I'd like to reiterate that while it's important to have a good police chief, if this chief is too expensive for this town, and we can get someone to do the services of a part-time police chief for far less money with probably the same level of assurance that the town will not get involved in the kind of lawsuits we were in the past. I think the prior board, and perhaps this board, if you go through with this contract, are being excessively cautious about getting the town involved in further lawsuits. At some point, we have to be willing to go back to where we were before, paying our full-time police chief a reasonable salary. Thank you.
Okay, someone else?
Lori Davis. I saw this contract first time 3 years ago. I wasn't happy with it then, and I'm really not happy with it now. I cannot believe that you're letting him write his own contract and that you're going off of this contract. There are people in surrounding towns that were interested in becoming a chief for our town this year, and we're happy to take a salary of $90,000 and not have to have a cruiser all the time. So I don't know what the game plan is here, but $90,000 is excessive for what we're doing. I see that he is able to take a car to and from work. Does that also include him allowed to take it to Durham when he works? Because I've seen the cruiser there. And I, as a resident, do not want my cruiser going anywhere but here when it's necessary. I don't want it going to the grocery store, I don't want his children in it, and I don't want it going to Durham. The other question I have is, he is supposed to be a part-time person. That's what he is, a part-time police chief. Now, he's been here tonight and he left so that we could have an open dialogue. Was he on the clock while he was here? Is that part of his time? The question is, does the minute he hit that cruiser, is that now part of his clock? Are we getting charged for that? Because if you go by the retirement system, that would figure into his time. So if his driving time is part of his working time, we don't have him here very often.
Is driving time to and from work, from home?
Yes.
No, that's not. No more than if you're on the clock in any other job, you don't punch in before you leave.
Then I think that language needs to be in here, because many residents do not see that very clearly, and there are attorneys that would disagree with that because it's not in here. Another question I have is, again, the fact that he shouldn't be going to Durham with this car. But he is a part-time employee. Part-time means not full-time. Why is part-time being offered benefits? Why are we paying part-time a $5,500 stipend not to take benefits? He's part-time. He's not full-time. He shouldn't be getting benefits. One has to wonder what's going on here.
Again, that is not a change in the contract.
No, but it's something you're supposed to be looking out for the town, the residents, the taxpayers, the people that vote for you and that are footing the bill for all of this. The people in this town constantly have come to this board, and I've been at most of the meetings, asking for a full-time police chief. To date, we do not have one. We've had plenty of time to get one, but we've done nothing about it. 18 months is a lot of time, and you want time 8 months to warn him if you're letting him go 45 days if he wants to leave us? Where's the prep time in that? And if you're letting somebody go, you certainly don't want them to vet out their predecessor. That's bad business. No company has somebody leave and have them go and hire their new person. They want them gone, and they want to train them their own way. It really makes me wonder where my Board of Selectmen are actually doing a job, because you're letting this contract stand at his own whim, and you're not looking out for us in any size, way, shape, and or form. And I just think this whole thing needs to be redone, and he shouldn't be writing his contract. You need to be taking the ball and saying, this is what we're willing to pay. End of discussion. If you don't like it, goodbye, because there are plenty of people out there. One thing we cannot afford to do is lose the people we've hired in our new police staff while we're overpaying this. This is a man that told us the cruiser's outfitting was going to be one cost. Turns out they were last year's figures, and now they're going over cost. And it turns out, oh hey, he's got money in his budget to pay for it. I can't trust what he says because he can't get his facts straight. And I'm surprised my board is putting up with this.
Thank you for your input.
I think it's quiet now.
Frank Campana. Very difficult for me to compare the old contract with the new contract, but a couple of things I looked at that were easy to pick up. On page 4 of 4, vacation. And I'll say the same thing as I said 2 years ago. This guy's laughing all the way to the bank. He wrote his own contract, and you very graciously said, okay, we'll give it to you, because we want the police department to be great. Well, there are other people out there that can be a police chief and make the department equally great, because we never hear of issues from other towns or read about issues from other towns. But anyway, page 4, vacation time. I see that the old contract was a one-time grant of 2 weeks vacation. That is not in the new contract. But he shall accrue 3 weeks, additional week, 3 additional weeks of vacation during the period, the date period stated. The new contract has gone from 3 weeks to 4 weeks. and correct me if I'm,
Just to clarify, on the original contract, the old one, he had been with us as acting chief and then interim chief and so forth for almost a year going into the signing of the contract, or maybe about 10 months actually. So we awarded that 2 weeks up front because he hadn't had any time up to that point. And then the contract called for 3 weeks for a year thereafter.
okay. Mike, I'm not questioning the 2 weeks vacation, all right? All I did was make a note that it wasn't in there, and I appreciate the explanation. But again, you've gone from 3 weeks to 4 weeks.
It's 4 weeks, right.
And this is a person that's still working, supposedly, but you have no idea, because you can't confirm, you can't seem to confirm that he's working 32 hours a week. I'll guarantee you that, because I've asked the question before. But anyway, now, so you've gone from 3 weeks vacation to 4 weeks vacation for the same 32 hours a week. You know, the guy's not stressed out. You know, 32 hours is 32 hours. That's it. So you've given that, those extra 4 weeks overall, or extra 3 weeks overall. I apologize to the minute taker because I guess I'm going to skip around here. It was hard for me to follow. On page 6 of 6, and pretty closely the same in the old one. Under 13, general expenses. General expenses. The old contract, any proposed expenditures which exceed $250 must be approved by prior written consent of the Board of Selectmen. The new contract is $2,000. What's this, so a trip that you can take to Kentucky? Or to go to Kalia? So you've increased that $1,750. And I know there will be a select and say, well, that's not a lot of money. Well, baloney. You know, look at my tax bill. All right? That's what I look at. The bottom line of my tax bill. And I think I had one other that I picked up on, but I probably wouldn't be able to find it. So I'll sit down. Only with the comment is, you know, this guy's very adept at writing his own contract, and he's very fortunate that he has a board that will go along with it. And I'm not necessarily being critical of the job that he's doing, but I think it's a lot. The people that are well off in the town, they'll think this is great. You know, let it fly. That's all we've got, guys. For now.
Just to clarify, the, this contract was sent to our attorney for review.
Pardon me?
Was sent to our attorney for review, the
Oh, I'm
language of
sure.
our contract.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I'll try not to repeat anything that anyone else has. I'll try and make my own questions. In section 1 under the terms, the 8 months, that gives the new board 1 month to make that decision. Is that correct? Because it has to be done by December 31st, and a new board comes on the end of March, beginning April. So if they have to give the 8 months,
Right, it's March 31st.
and that really doesn't give much time. Maybe the new people can speak about that the first month really, to delve into something like this really, I think is not reasonable. So I'd like you to just take that into consideration.
I think that would be the end of April, actually.
Say again?
8 months from. 4 plus 8.
Yeah.
But I think it's not that much time, and I just, just putting it out there. So, Tom, you said the work hours begin when he comes to the office, is that correct? On page 3, in the first section, employees shall be available to attend meetings, hearings, and conferences. Is this all part of the 32 hours a week?
If we ask him to attend, then it's part of the 32 hours. And it's the same now, he adjusts his time depending on that.
So if he decides he wants to go somewhere, is that part of the 32 hours?
If it's in relation, well, let's say he has a conference, again, the board's gonna have to discuss it. My understanding of it, suppose that he has to attend something at the police academy.
That would
related-
benefit where?
Hmm?
That benefits where?
Depending on what it is.
Okay. If it doesn't benefit where, does that make a difference? What I'm trying to, I could see many meetings that would be beneficial to Chief Kelly that may not make a difference to the town of Weare. What I'm trying to find out is that part of his 32 hours?
Well, you know, I can't directly answer that, except that it's hard to specify what, because it's a total package. The person's learning and advancing his knowledge and is communicating with peers and so forth. It's all part of the package as far as doing the job as a chief of police. That's my feeling, a personal feeling. It's not just a matter of when you're sitting in a chair at the office. As far as functioning as the police chief of police, it's a total package of time and effort.
Do we have any, do you have any concrete knowledge of how many hours he actually then spends in Weare?
I can't answer that tonight.
Okay, but you see what I'm trying to.
Yeah, I know. But
Okay.
the hours are submitted
Okay.
according to state regulations, and our finance director keeps track of it. But I don't have that information with me tonight.
Okay, maybe you'll be able to get that. On vacation time, I wonder if this is a typo error. June 8th to December 31st, 2017. He gets 4 weeks. That's a half a year. And then it continues with a year, he gets 4 weeks. So I wondered whether that was meant to be 2 weeks for the half year.
He hasn't had vacation time during this calendar year, so that 4 weeks is included, which would be.
Doesn't he accrue that then?
Pardon?
Doesn't he accrue that if he hasn't taken it?
I'd have to check that out.
Would you?
Basically, what that paragraph means is it's increasing from 3 weeks to 4 weeks per year.
Yeah, but I just wondered if that.
Because the way it's written, I
If-
get what you're
Yeah,
saying.
I think,
I would look at
I
it.
think it's the wording
Yeah.
of it that's the problem, but that's the intent.
I'm not sure if someone already asked this, under section 11 benefits. The second paragraph, the benefits outlined specifically in this agreement, blah, blah, blah. The second line, benefits now and in the future that are provided to all full-time. I don't understand why you're putting full-time in there, why we're switching from part-time to full-time.
Wasn't 32.
It's a little confusing to me. If he's part-time, why are we giving him benefits for full-time people?
Again, that's not a change from the previous contract.
I never saw the previous contract. I'm sorry I didn't, but that doesn't mean that makes sense to me now. The other thing is that as I read section 12, if the town voted that non-union people get an increase, he would be privy to that increase. And I guess part of my problem is that increase, if it's 3%, it would be a lot of money, I don't know, $2,000, $2,700, something like that. And other people who are making $28,000 are getting pennies. And somehow it seems imbalanced to me, and it concerns me. This is like overdue. And do you happen to know what this past year's general expenses, section 13, what have the total general expenses been? Do you happen to know that, so we have an idea of what you might be talking about? Business-related expenses.
Yeah, I don't have that in hand tonight.
Maybe it would be worthwhile to get that information. Thank you.
I have some questions regarding the benefits associated with a part-time employee. I'll try. Is that better?
That is good.
Can you hear me
I used to
now?
ask you that when you were at the table, too.
Can you hear me now?
You're good.
Can you hear me
As long as
now?
you're looking this way, we can hear you.
That's because you're reading my
The other
lips.
way.
The Affordable Health Care Act, last year, the year before, a couple of years ago, at the time this contract was being written, there was an erroneous information regarding the benefits to part-time employees. And as you certainly are aware, that the fire chief and the assistant administrator over there, part-time employees, and they were receiving the insurance buyout of $5,500. That was quickly corrected, and that they were no longer receiving the $5,500 insurance buyouts. But it had already been written into the contract for the police chief, and I believe it was written in there based on the premise that the Affordable Health Care Act allowed that to happen. But we now know it doesn't. So to me, it seems like you're perpetuating an error by including that in his contract. I think it's highly unusual that a part-time employee, as has been stated earlier, is receiving full-time benefits. But more so in that area, in one area, because that one area is providing him with $5,500. Why don't you just take it out and give him $5,500 in his salary, make it $95,500, because that's what it is. It's a way of giving him more money. So either take it out, take that paragraph out. I don't believe he should be receiving the same benefits that a full-time employee would receive, regardless of performance, and add it to his salary. Given his salary requirements, if he was working 40 hours a week, he'd be making about 120 grand. I think we need a full-time chief, 40 hours a week minimum. It's been stated previously at the prior contract public hearing as well. So I certainly don't agree with the salary, and I certainly don't agree with him receiving full-time benefits. Question regarding the 32 hours. Is that a cumulative amount based on his other jobs? If he worked 8 hours at University of New Hampshire,
No.
1 week, so he could work 32 hours at the University of New Hampshire and work 32 hours here, it doesn't add to his...
University of New Hampshire is a different retirement system. That doesn't reflect on the New Hampshire retirement system.
Okay.
It's a different one, and we addressed that before on the prior contract, it's all the same question.
You're not part of the retirement, you
It's
can go work
different,
100 hours somewhere.
retirement.
And Clear is the same thing. I thought he had made a statement at his first contract that he wasn't going to work for Clear.
No, that was in the contract.
I know it was in the
He wanted to
contract.
continue with that.
And how many hours has he put in this past year with Clear?
I don't know.
Regardless of whether he's allowed to do it, it's taking time away from his job here in Weare. So you don't know if it was 1 week, 2 weeks, or 8 weeks.
I don't think it's measured in weeks, but.
Well, I mean, it'd be 3 days maybe. I think that's the average time they do. You don't know how much time he spent in with Kalia last year?
Not tonight, I don't have that.
Is it tracked?
We could find out. I don't have it.
I would think that it's something you'd want, to know how many hours per week he actually works. And that's just one more question. Do you know how many hours per week he works for Weare, what the average is? You keep track of that. How many hours per week does he work for the town of Weare?
32.
Okay, every week? Oh, that's good. You're tracking it.
We have to.
All right.
For the retirement system, yes.
Thanks. Excuse me, you're tracking that he doesn't work more than 32 hours, is that right?
Right.
You're not tracking it if he works 20 hours.
He's working his 32 hours, but one of the reasons, there were board members who wanted to see it more concretely spelled out, and that's why there's a section in here that, in this contract that requires that. I have no doubt whatsoever that it's difficult for him to keep it to 32 hours a week.
Good evening, Jack Dearborn, Gould Road, Weare. Listen to the contract overview. By all means, there are some things in there that should be aligned with the old contract, or at least understand why they're different. And I too want to make sure that the town of Weare doesn't spend any extra money. But in the case of the chief, if we look back at least to 2010, where I was able to garner the information, we were paying Primex, our liability pool. We belong to Primex, which is a liability pool for small towns like the town of Weare, rather than going to commercial market. And we were paying $78,000 for our liability insurance respective. Just for the police, today we're paying $460,000. So, and you go back and do an accumulation, and this is the 5-year window. So every little tick, every time you have a lawsuit they have to pay, and/or a arbitration or mediation that says you got to pay, or you just buy the person off to get out of it, there's a tick up on not only what gets paid out. It's not insurance. They kind of get it back from you over a period of 5 years. So there's a staircase of all the issues over the last, I'll say, prior to 2014, with huge judgments against us. So if you took a look at the past 5 years, 6 years, we're over $1 million. Now, what will $1 million buy? Not quite a building, maybe 5 trucks. It's a lot of things. So I hear all the discussion about the contract and what the compensation is. And by the way, when you hire an executive, it's the total compensation that people typically negotiate rather than the individual items. So the question becomes, and I've written a lot of these employment contracts in my career. I guess the biggest issue is, I hear that people say you can hire chiefs all day. Well, that may be true, but we had chiefs in the past, and you can see the result of that. And also, notwithstanding one individual on the board, but typically boards aren't qualified to operate and run a police force. That's why you hire an executive to make those decisions. And it's a little bit different position than what the fire would be, and also I'm not minimizing the fire and the public works director's position. It's a different issue. Today, in a litigious society where you can get sued by looking stupid, it's important you've got somebody to minimize that. And since he's been here, since 2013, October, whenever it was, a third of his day is spent leading the team. Other third of the day is dealing with lawyers to try to figure out how to minimize the impact from these lawsuits. And the other third of the day, he's basically trying to figure out how to do the policies and procedures so that we don't make the mistakes. What you want to do, the clear. Everybody here, I heard all that about clear before. It is a competency model. And industries, all industries have these. Just happens to be one for the police. This is how good practice is done. You have it documented, you train to it, you hold people accountable, and if they aren't following it, you take appropriate action. Without any of that, they're just basically employees with no direction, as we've seen in the past. So I too want to save money, but we're paying $400,000 a year today. It may go down a little bit as long as another shoe don't drop from 2012, which may be out there. So we could, over a period of 10 years, spend $2 to $3 million above and beyond what the basic liability policy. To me, that's real money. I don't hear anybody screaming about that in any meetings up here. It's sunk cost. How do you prevent that? By having the right executive that can run the job. He's giving you 2.5 years, whatever the length of it is, to find a successor. You can go get rid of him, or you can make it such that he doesn't want to sign up. He has other options, I'm sure. He's in big demand. The question is, what's the town of Weare? What's best for the town of Weare? Sure, there's probably some things in that contract that should probably be ironed out and made consistent. But as far as the compensation, nitpicking the 32 hours, or this and that item, it's basically the total compensation package that most executives hire and leave and be attracted to. So I would just suggest, my personal opinion, make any changes that make sense. But I think it'll be a big shortcoming for this town if we lost the chief at this point. Just to hire one person, a patrol, just one patrol person. From the time we ask for anybody who wants to be a patrolman, we receive about 130 resumes. There's a filtering system to get from people that don't know anything or aren't physically capable or whatever to do a police job. You stop whittling that down to people that actually turn in a resume with an application and actually get to the next level and maybe even get a position in front of the public board that we use for review police officers. And then even after you accept the person and say, this is the right person, this is the guy we want, you do a detailed background check. 1 out of 3 make it and 2 out of 3 fail. Even if you liked the way they looked, gave all the great answers, did all the physical training aspects. The question I'm making is, to get to a patrol officer who is at the bottom of the line, ready to go into the state training, training over at Concord, we usually go through 130 applicants and really scrub them. So it's really tough to find somebody with a track record. And we actually have the track record here. We're not hiring men from a story from another town. And the only way he came here, we didn't go out looking for him and hire him. He fell in our lap. How did he fall in our lap? Chief Selectmen came here, and he said, I need somebody to figure out how to get the processes and procedures in place. So you hired him as a deputy. Well, what happened to our Chief Selectmen? He had to leave. Well, we was asked to leave. How would he want to do it? The point I'm trying to make is, it's very difficult for a non-domain experienced board, other than Jack. None of you really have any police, and I'm looking backwards to the last 4 or 5 boards. It's very difficult for you to manage the police department. You hire an executive to run it and keep you out of the poorhouse from all the claims against the town. I'm very concerned about that going forward. We got 2.5 years if you grant him this contract, and if he accepts the contract you grant him, to find his replacement. And he's been willing to stand up and do that. And that is very common in my industry at executive level. We actually have a clause for any director or vice president we hire. After 6 months, it's not a probation. No questions asked, give you your salary, see you later. Just doesn't work out. Your case, you hire somebody new 2.5 years from now, never had time getting rid of them. History shows it's very difficult to get rid of a police chief. I mean, somebody in the town of Weare is going to get a ticket who don't think they should get a ticket. Maybe they deserve it, but not in the eyes of the person receiving it. It's very easy to collect negatives as a police chief. Nobody wants to see the police until they need the police. Then you can't get there fast enough, you can't have enough help. So no problem getting the alignment on the contracts. I do have a problem when you're treating a professional and you're nitpicking the hours of work, and does he really get the hours in? I think you find if you follow him around, he's sweating that he's gonna seen as working more than 30 hours. So, just my thoughts on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jack.
Marge Burke, Merrill Road. Thank you, Jack. You've said everything I would have said much more eloquently. I'm not a wealthy person. I am retired and live on a fixed income. I don't like to see my taxes go up any more than anyone else does. But you get what you pay for. And I am very impressed with the job that our chief has done since we hired him compared to, as Jack said, going back many years. As with Jack, I've had the privilege of sitting on some of the oral boards to interview most of our new officers in town. And it's a very rigorous program we put them through to get to go before the chief to be accepted, and then the background checks, and then come before the selectmen. One of the things I look at when we're looking at possible officers is, would I feel comfortable having them come into my home in an emergency? And I can say, yes, I'm qualified with the people that we have hired recently. I can't say that about some of our former officers. I would have been very uncomfortable to have some of them in my home in an emergency. Putting on my school board hat, the chief and his officers have been extremely responsive quickly with some major things that we've had happen in this town. The incident at John Stark and the wheel that fell off a school bus for the Weare district. And they did an exemplary job of investigating it all and getting the problems resolved quickly without further incident. So while there are some things in this contract that maybe need to be tweaked a little, I think that we need to err on the side of quality and extend a contract to the chief to keep him for the length of time that the contract says through 2019, knowing that you can't rebuild a police department in 2 years, which is about what 2.5 years we've had him. It takes time, and he has done an exemplary job. Just getting the CALIA accreditation is something that's invaluable, because he's put in policies and procedures that not many police departments across the country can meet. So I think that's a real feather in the cap of Weare, that we have that kind of a department and a chief who inspires confidence in his officers. So I support the chief in this contract.
Campana again. I'm curious to know, and again, I know it's small dollars, the well, the increase in money for him to go to classes, for lack of a better word. You put up a page, I had it on, page 6, or 6, section 13. What was the rationale to page 6,
Actually, see,
13? Pardon me?
we haven't met since this was done.
Okay.
And so
Well-
it hasn't been discussed, or it hasn't been looked at, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, there had to be a couple of members from the board for to meet with him to discuss it. I mean, there has to be, to make a contract, there has to be one party here and one party there.
What I'm saying, what you're referring to right now, no.
Which one, where are you, Fred?
Section 13 from page 6. I asked about it before. What was the rationale from going to, or the reason that he gave you that he needs $1,700 more? Again, the last contract was 250, and this one's 2.
Yeah, we'll have to discuss that.
Okay, all right.
At the end of the...
All right, maybe I'm misunderstanding what you said, Jim. In regards to his pay, the salary, section 7, page 4, there was a previous speaker that commented about the $5,500 payment to part-time employees, which in fact was in his last contract. And you don't have the old one, but I disagree with with that speaker, because he said, well, why don't you give the $5,500, add it to the 90,000, give it to him. Are you on the section 7?
I don't believe it.
Okay. Well, I would tend to think, is he getting that is he still gonna get that benefit of $5,500?
Again, that's a carryover from the previous contract, and the answer to that is yes.
Okay, and that would be under, I think that would be covered under section 11.
Correct.
It's the only place I can see that, in the second paragraph. Is that where that's covered? So he's gonna get the $5,500, even though we've had 2 employees that are deemed not eligible to get it, he's gonna get the $5,500. So he's actually making $95,000 in round numbers. Right? If he's making $90,000, you're gonna add $5,500 to it, so he can be making $95,500.
That's what it adds up to.
That's what it adds up to, right. Well, here again, I just want to reiterate, I understand what the last couple of speakers said, but when one person said that, we have to pay the money, and I'm paraphrasing the way I understood that person to say it, we have to pay the money to the executive, because he is the executive, but you folks are also executives. And the board has changed over the last, I think the person went back 10 years, and he cited the liability insurance. But I've been up here many, many times, and I pointed the finger to the board, again, realizing there's really, unfortunately, only one consistent person on the board. So I'm not really picking on you, in a sense. But, okay. But, you are the executives. You don't have to know how to run a police department, but you do have to know when you see an incident in 2013, I think, at Langtots, when you see lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit, all right? That's not part of running the police department. The part of running, for you folks who run the police department, is put the halt, put the brakes, put the noose around the whoever that police chief was at the time, or police chiefs were at the time. Those, that's your responsibility. Say, hey, what's going on here? When the board lays back, and I've said it again, I said, and seems to dismiss their, wash their hands of the responsibility, well, that's not being a good executive either. And you guys only make $3,000 a year, all right? But, that's where the responsibility relies. You don't have to know how to put the cops on the road, you don't have to know how to train them, but you do have to know when you get lawsuit after lawsuit, then it's your responsibility to step up. So don't say, well, we need a police chief to do that. Yes, we do, all right? But if this police chief starts to fail in some areas, the selectmen just gonna sit back as executives, say, oh, well, there's nothing we can do about it, let's pay the next guy more money. So, you know, that fallacy of, yes, you do get what you pay for, but you have to monitor what you're paying for too. And that's been lacking over the last 10 years to cause a $450,000 liability.
And
So,
growing,
pardon me?
and growing. That's just.
Well, I don't know if it's growing. I think the budget shows that it actually went down a little bit, but anyway.
Shoes ain't dropped yet.
Okay. But, you know, I think this is excessive, all right? I think he'll probably still stay on, and if he doesn't stay on because you want to take some off of his salary or go back to 3 weeks or some of the other things here, then, you know, you have to think, well, really, you know, what's his motive for being here? You know, is it really just this? And I'm not saying that he's not, you know, in tune to doing the job too, but, you know, what's his priority? And I think his priority is the bucks. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you again. I would just say, looking for new comments, not the same thing, okay, just to move us along.
I just have one comment for the board. I keep hearing that was in the previous contract. The word contract means negotiations. Negotiations means give and take, means that things do not stay the same. What is in a current contract does not need to stay for the next contract. For some reason, some people seem to think this is etched in stone. It's not. There needs to be some corrections here. Because he had it the last 3 years does not mean it needs to stay. And the current philosophy is, well, he had it, so he's going to continue it, is not acceptable. To take certain benefits away from other employees that were not eligible for insurance buyouts and to continue to do this is not acceptable. It's discriminatory. We need to correct our behavior.
Thank you. Anyone else before we close the public hearing?
Can I speak from here? Mine?
Speak up loud so that...
Sure. Naomi, this is probably, you know more about this. Do they know more or less, the insurance company, about the usage of the car, business use versus commuter vehicle? If he's in an accident, is he considered on duty?
I've never asked that question, so that wouldn't be fair for me to say. I don't know. I could ask that question. I don't know it.
If you wouldn't mind. And the insured policy value, what do we currently have on the cruisers?
I would venture out here. I'm not an insurance agent, but if we get cash value on the...
No, I'm talking about the actual liability policy.
Not without asking, sorry. I can...
No, because he's driving over toward the north end of Rochester, where Lebanon is, so... Alright.
If there's no further comment, I will close the public hearing at 8:52.
I think... Is that correct? There's no more public input regarding the building, he just asked. It just would be a comment at the end.
Just be public comment.
Public comment at the end. Are we doing this next item on the agenda?
The cameras?
I don't know if he left or not left. I told him, we talked about doing it next meeting. And then I was surprised to see him.
Yeah, I was surprised because I thought that we had...
Next meeting, yeah. Thought we were postponed for brevity.
You betcha.
Where's my... Oh, there it is.
Buried.
Yeah.
I think he's out there. I don't think he left. Left. I think he just stepped out.
I'm not sure if he's out there.
I think he just stepped out.
Don't know.
Can we go look for him?
Can't answer.
You want me to go look for him, see if he's around?
I don't know who Bruce is out there, but who's he with?
Well, let's quickly do the minutes while we're deciding. Let's see if he walks in the door now.
Is the chief out there or is he gone?
It was an
Is
easy one
Sean
for me,
gone?
I didn't find anything's changed.
Would you just go up and see?
at all.
I can call him.
But just go see if he's gone. I don't know if he stepped outside. Please.
Did anybody have changes in the minutes? Okay, then I move that we approve the minutes of May 22nd as printed. Good job, Dan.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay. 4 and 1
401.
abstention.
he's gone to see if he's here.
See the manifest?
Manifest.
I didn't
Move
get
to order
one.
the treasurer to sign payroll and accounts payable checks dated June 8th, 2017, as included in the following manifest. Payroll,
He's in town.
$53,342.45. Just a comment on that, there was a holiday in there, that's why it's a little higher than usual. Fire monthly payroll manifest, $14,804.57. An accounts payable manifest of $108,769.93. And a Weare School District manifest of $513,928, for a total of $690,844.95.
Be nice to be quiet.
And how many cents?
95 cents.
Second.
Not quite finished.
Oh.
Now, the following were approved, previously approved at the May 22nd meeting, and that came out to a payroll manifest for the week ending 6/1/17 of $44,810.45, and accounts payable of $38,272.65. And since there's no selectmen's meeting scheduled for Monday, June 12th, we also order the treasurer to sign payroll checks dated June 15th, estimated to be $55,000. Furthermore, to order the treasurer to sign up to $40,000 for accounts payables that cannot wait until the next scheduled meeting of June 19th without incurring late charges or interest. Reports and actual check amounts will be reported to the Board of Selectmen by inclusion on the manifest memo at the next scheduled meeting. Now, is there a second?
Second.
And is there any discussion? Dan, who's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Not taking a breath in between. Caught me off guard.
I think he's all said he's not coming back.
No, he's texting me.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna hand down the table a deed for a cemetery. You guys all have to sign it. I'm also gonna send down a deed conveying property back to a couple. The taxes were redeemed, so you guys have to sign it and send it back to the other. These came in. There's a junkyard license and certificate from Allied Auto. Chip has gone and done the inspection. There was an application, you fill out the application, then Chip inspects it, and then we issue the junkyard license certificate. Hang on.
Was this the one we met with?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I have Maureen left in my mailbox. There's a warrant for the unlicensed dogs that also needs to be signed. And I'm just gonna ask it, we have a non-public at the end under C. He said he was
I already, he texted me.
He's gone, yeah. Next week, we had an item on here for cameras. Next week, we talked about pushing it off to next week, because there's gonna be some other, I should have the information back on the mezzanine, kind of for the locker room. We went and looked at the locker room. So next week, we had agreed that we'd bring it all forward with both chiefs and the projects.
I would suggest any board members who could get over there to kind of look at it to get a clearer
Sure.
idea, because when I looked at those diagrams, I thought, I really need to see this. what they're
Oh, for
talking
live?
about, so that-
Yeah, I'll show you guys it's a hand sketch of the proposed.
No, I just saw it briefly, but it doesn't have meaning to me until I walk on and say, okay, we'll put that
Right.
there, this here.
And you guys also, did you get in your packet 4 months of CRF? Yep,
Yep.
okay. Other than that, we have to now go back and you gotta revisit what you started off at the beginning of the night, if that's your choice. Oh, he's back.
You did come back.
Oh. We thought you'd get it east. Do we have
Set,
another thing?
yeah.
Did you send 3 things down for us to sign?
Yeah, there's a couple right here.
Yeah, Jack's looking at them. Sean, we still gonna hold on the cameras till the next meeting?
You know what?
Hold on the cameras till the 19th? Yes. So,
I never heard of them.
How are the town hall doors?
They're in the same condition they were the last time. we
they're
were
still
Okay.
on the stage.
Tim has a suggestion for you.
Well,
I took notes
we have
down.
public comment.
Okay. Okay.
I'm done if you. Whoops. You have that, and you've got the 2 public hearings. What do you want to do?
Right,
Okay.
I'm sort of on my right
Processing?
train of thought, but it's a little off
9
track
o'clock.
slightly. So is that it for your input?
Mm-hmm.
Public comment, Tim?
Something to add for the town hall doors, the stick dock, you may wanna get a spec from Astro and Grain, so we don't end up with finger jointed material or subpar material. I think those jams are select clear pine. Yeah. Just so we don't end up with poplar or some kind of rock or finger jointed material.
Just to clarify, the doors that are being put on, there aren't going to be new frames. There'll have to be repairs to the frames if there's something wrong with it, but the new doors are the slabs, the doors.
I realize that. But there are some hinge jams if they
Right.
drill them at an angle trying to hit substrate
Yeah.
4 inches away, so
Yeah.
they kind of ruined the jams.
Anything else?
What do you call them? Finger joints?
I actually, I guess the contractor, I was,
Basically, you solid what you said.
didn't seem to really want to work with us as far as changes. So a little perturbed about that. I don't even think he went through the motions of trying to see if the radiant versus another source of heat. I would really like to see the expense of the radiant floor versus waste oil burners that emit hot air. And I was kind of under the, what Mr. Town said about closing off one section, 1 floor bay. You can still put items in there, but if we get that fire suppression back or a firewall, $20,000, guys, for a firewall. How much equipment have you get in there? And we've been through this. We're only gonna get cash value, actual cash value for those trucks when they burn. And probably, Ricky, you're better one to know this, it's more the newer stuff that carries the 5 volts through the systems for the ECM.
Mm-hmm.
That those are the things that are catching on fire. It's the aftermarket body makers there. If a wire is off the transmission for the PTO or something gets corroded, then, you know, that's what's causing a lot of your fires. So it's the newer trucks. It's can't really blame it on the old dogs, per se. But I would really like to see you guys try to at least get a firewall in there. It's $20,000 versus all that equipment to be replaced. You know, you're probably talking $4.5 million to replace everything. $20,000 would come into play pretty good in my mind to alleviate that. And the other thing was too, and I would like to really push the issue too, so we don't pay a high pumpage price on the rain, the water that's gonna melt off the trucks. Like I said, if we put a tank in, Jack, you know what I mean by a septic tank, right? It has a baffle in it, and it catches all solids, obviously.
Yep.
But this tank, if you put a big enough baffle in it, the water would have to go underneath it, and all your oil films and most of your contaminants would stay within a smaller tank. So having a primary tank for all the crap to go to, and then the better effluent water goes to the 5,000 gallon tank. And it would probably be treated different. You'd probably pay one price, a higher contamination rate to pump the 500 to 1,000 gallon tank, compared to pumping 5,000 gallons contaminated at a higher rate. I really wish you would put that into, put some thought into that, because that'll fill up before you know it.
Right? Okay. Frank?
Frank Campana. This is going back to your last, to the meeting of May 22nd, which was your last meeting, because you didn't meet Monday. I was quite interested when the police chief spoke and gave a couple of figures in regard to the right to know request that he had. I think he said he had like 98, and he went on to specifics. Well, it didn't include motor vehicles, didn't include this and that and that. But he said one chief who was a chief for 12 years had, well, within a 12-year span, had one right to know. One chief in 10 years had 5 right to know. And we've had 98. I think, suspiciously, as I do, I think he has, although I don't think he has to go far to convince the board, but I think he's laid pretty good framework, groundwork for an assistant secretary that has been proposed and certainly apparently delayed because of the budget that you got. I'm a little bit surprised that none of the selectmen, questioned why, what types of right to know. And I'll say this, not sarcastically, but really an extreme example, which I'm sure would not happen. I mean, if I wanted to go in to see the police chief, is the secretary going to ask me to fill out a right to know request? I mean, it could be something as simple as that. So I think, it'd be nice for the selectmen to ask him, is he going overboard? I know at one time we had a financial person, when I would ask to see some invoices, and I had no problem with it. She asked me to fill out a right to know request, and that was fine. But there are a lot of information, monetary budgets, et cetera, that was not the case. Which he probably could have said, well, okay, I want a copy of the budget. Well, fill out a right to know request and I'll get it to you in a couple of days. So I think, the numbers that he gave of these other 2 police chiefs sound very, very, very inconsistent with the number of right to know requests that we've got. And I think there's method to that madness.
Just, I've got to comment a little bit on that, Frank, because the board has some knowledge of where those are coming from. And I can't go into detail on it because it relates to prior litigation.
Yeah.
And we're being bombarded with right to know requests, many from the same source. So I don't question that number because I know where they're coming from.
Okay.
Just to
And I'll put this out there, I don't know firsthand, I usually, I usually try to pride myself with having something in my hand to hold up, but I don't have it this time. I would suggest that maybe the present secretary maybe ought to go to a little less CALEA meetings, unless she's been inside to want to do that. But, if it's a question of importance of the job, then, there ought to be a means of keeping that person at the job, not those meetings. Thanks.
Any other public comment before we close? Jack?
Regarding the building, good discussion tonight. One thing I just give an observation, most people already know this, but I'll bring it up anyways. We've been trying to get a new building since 2010 that I know. We were on CIP committee. And I think it was even tried even a couple times before that. And it's very difficult to get the town to pass the necessary votes to get a bond issue. Okay, so now we've got it. And the question would be, believe me, I am concerned more about the employee that might be in the building than the equipment itself. But really, it's the issue of the individual that I'm more concerned with. But there's a bigger question here where I didn't think about it at the time, but I believe the insulation, when you say don't finish it off, well, that means just leave the girders there, because everything goes on the walls and the roof is the insulation package that go together. So it isn't like you could just leave the structure up without any roof on it on the sides. So the real question, even if you just boxed it up and didn't put anything in there, I think the concrete is minuscule compared to the cost. I encourage to get the building built out, and if there's a way of doing a between the baffle, the $20,000 between the two major areas there, that at least minimize some of the issues. Now, here's the question: if we didn't build that piece of the building for $200,000, and we put a sprinkler system of what we could build for the rest, we would never get another bond issue to finish that building off 10 more years. They're just so hard to come by. So the real question is, $200,000 is a lot of money, but on the tax base, it's around 23 cents for 1 year. So the question is, if that should be done, and I'm not arguing it shouldn't be done, the question is, how do you achieve the end goal and how long does it take you to get there? I'd recommend building out the building, spend the $20,000 to segregate the area, and maybe some capability, I don't know, I haven't looked at this, but there may be from maybe 12 feet up, do a physical hard wall board for the fire break for 1 hour. There may be some kind of a curtain you can buy to go between to isolate those two major parts of the storage area. Some option. I think building out the building is primary. And I know it's another $200,000, but when you come to look at the trade-off between a human life and or interruption of the business, because look at Henniker. They were scrounging for trucks and graders and from the state and the surrounding towns just to keep up with it. We'd be in the same position and probably in a bigger problem because we have a lot more vehicles. So I'd encourage building out the building as the town voted. Try to mitigate as best we can the fire issue and figure out how and when we can get this thing resolved completely. Whether it's next year on a warrant article, I don't know. It'll be almost impossible to get anybody past $200,000 bond. I don't know if the DRA would even allow you to do that. So that was my only comment.
Earlier, during comments regarding a public hearing regarding the police chief's contract, a member of the public mentioned something about liability insurance and kind of made reference to additional lawsuits, sounded like. Could you help? I'm familiar with one. I'm familiar with one of the lawsuits, but could you identify what those lawsuits are that are outstanding against the town?
I'm not sure that I can do that in public session. Let me think about it.
Apparently, a member of the public is aware of it.
How do you know that?
I'm making an assumption. Maybe it's
Well,
wrong.
maybe you're wrong.
But you did say there were.
I did say the word.
Were. That means more than one. Do you know of any other than the one that I'm familiar with and you're familiar with?
I'm not sure that I know what you're talking about.
Well, the lawsuit by a former employee.
Right. Well, we've got some that go way back.
I guess that's a way
Still
back.
working on, and they're major, and then we have some that are more minor, and that we have a very good chance of coming out with them being in our favor. But again, we're talking about, I can't use people's names here.
Well, there's certainly one that I believe is public. It's been in the paper. The one that we are involved with.
Which one are you talking about? Give me an initial or something? I don't know what you're talking about.
JC. And that's not the higher power JC.
You can, town aware versus, or so-and-so versus town aware, you can answer.
Well, there is one out there. I mean, there's a town aware versus, actually not.
Yeah, that's the old one we're talking about.
Okay.
Town Aware, or James Carter
Yeah.
versus the Town Aware. Yeah, that's been going on a long time, and it
Right.
still is going on.
And any status on that?
Chief, do you want to add
I
something?
can't answer status, I can tell you that there's one other suit,
One other suit, and that one is,
Joe Kelly versus the town.
yeah.
And that's recent.
It's recent, but it's sort of a continuation of something that was already settled.
So those are the only two that are outstanding right now?
Yes. And again, those are from previous administration.
Even the most recent one?
It's all connected to previous. Any other public comment? Okay, there being none, just in the nick of time.
Yes, sir. I saw a black cruiser go through town Saturday. Was that ours, black?
Yep.
Chrysler?
We have two.
Yep.
Okay. A couple questions for you. Will the cruisers have a white door?
Hopefully more than one.
No.
They're all black?
Yes.
Okay, hopefully the graphics are gonna be reflective.
Yes.
When the cruise went by, so I was talking to some people Saturday at the townwide yard sale, and what is the angle on your patch designate, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't.
It's not soft and cuddly. An anvil is not soft and cuddly.
Well,
That's what I asked.
I don't fully know. This patch was designed before my time, so.
Forging a new future.
Is that what it was?
That's exactly what it's for.
Okay,
Yep.
well, there you go.
Okay.
Forging
And the
forging a
other
new
question
future.
is, will you revert back to the town seal on the side of the cruiser?
He's got his own.
Just the town seal?
Right above your head,
I don't,
like previous?
I don't think so.
But it's something totally different now, right? I think Blackhead had changed that.
I don't think the town seal was on them before. I'm
Well, it was
almost
on
positive they
blue
weren't.
and then everything.
Yeah, but it was-
prior to
100 years ago.
That was many,
blue.
many years ago.
back in the
There was a
70s.
graphic, but it didn't have the town seal on it previous to this.
There was a
And
patch,
the-
a different patch on it.
Valeka had the badge, his newly created badge, he used as a symbol on the door, on the one white door. Which I thought was a great replica for Mayberry RFD.
Could we go back to the town seal, Mr. Kelly?
No.
that now?
I've never, I don't remember there being
I
a
don't know.
town seal on the cruisers.
If they vote, you can get them to do whatever you like. No, I think that's in your hands, so.
But I haven't seen the town seal on any cruisers.
In good number of
You know,
years.
it's Police, 911.
I used to see them more when I was younger, I guess, but I remember that symbol well.
Can I close public comment now?
Yes, sir.
We'll do.
Elaine, it meant forging the future. That's what the pact stands for.
Forging.
The future. Forging the future.
I put a new future, is that right?
Okay.
Forging checks.
Let's take a look at the fee schedule.
No, it was pretty bad.
They would like to close out on that so that they would be able to put them in
They
effect when they open. If we wait 2 weeks,
Very sensitive, I guess.
I apologize, I didn't hear you.
Should schedule, fee schedule about, want to get it done, so we won't meet for 2 weeks, but the question is, I think there has to be some addendums made to it as far as what was brought up, you know.
well, we can make changes here and then just give them back on our changes. I recommend it, you know, if we want to change them, then this is our decision.
I don't know what the
Oh, absolutely.
what the total,
But I don't think you're gonna find that. No, I don't think
you
you're
happen to know what the total,
For
what
one,
the
I'd
total
like to see
budget
it.
expenditures were?
The daily parking fee go back down to $5. I think $10 is way too much.
For a resident.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, John. Have a $5 ticket for a resident going for 1 day, and then have the $10 fee as it stands for the resident for the season, with $2 for each additional car. So, is there anybody who disagrees with that?
No.
And leave the boat ramp thing the same, it was $20, it is $20. Seniors, one free car pass, then $2 for each additional one. Is that, everybody okay with that?
Yep.
It's $2 for their pocket.
That was for seniors and veterans, or just seniors? Was that seniors and veterans, or just seniors?
I'm just going right down.
He's doing the seniors at the moment.
Take it one at a time.
Okay.
And then the $20, one free boat pass, and then $20 for each additional, so we'll stick with that. Veterans. One free car pass, I think they mean seasonal.
Yeah.
Or is it
I would say
seasonal or
both.
daily?
I'd say I'd go with both.
Either.
Either.
I go with either.
And then $2 each additional. $15 for the first boat or jet ski, and then $20 for each additional. You okay with that?
Mhm.
Okay, and we just changed the wording to first boat rather than per boat.
Yeah, $15 first boat, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And then additional is just 20.
Yeah.
Is that the same for seniors?
Going down to the non-residents, parking access, $10 per car, that's an increase from the $5 that it's been for a long, long time. Are people okay with that? A boat ramp access is the same, so no change. Is seniors, the $5 per car is due, it was 10. Do we want to go there, or do we want to leave it the same regardless of age? That's the question. This is for non-residents,
I like the $5. I leave it at 5.
okay? $20 per boat or jet ski. In case you have a senior out there on is it her jet ski? And that was 30, so that's a reduction. Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
And then veterans, this is new because there was nothing separate for veterans, so it's $5 per car for a non-resident veteran, which would basically keep it the way that it used to be for
Why would
anybody.
this be the thing?
And then $20 per boat or jet ski. People okay with that?
Yep.
Now, I think that, I don't think we need to go back in order to, the changes here are fairly minor, but I do think to dig out the information that was asked for, as far as how much does the park take in through fees, and what the changes would be here as far as additional funds.
Take gross take,
Right.
and they said they spent 17,000 salaries.
And what happens is when the $17,000 is done, she goes to just weekends, it's not through the week.
Yeah, they had a total of 19,000.
'Cause that's all she has.
To cover any
But
of
to put it together for public information, and then, you know, these, the money that comes in here, even though it doesn't go directly into their coffers for expenses, in a sense, since it goes into the general fund, it offsets taxes the following year as a revenue. In other words, when we figure our revenues, when the forms go into the state giving us the revenue, this is part of the revenue, so it's right up front. Nothing the board has to act on, but right up front, it's a revenue to offset the tax rate. So it does, in a sense, regardless of what they are, offset taxes. It's just, it's not direct, but it's into the pool of revenue.
I have one quick question. Residents, why wouldn't we have a resident veteran allow, as we would a senior, 1 free boat pass and 20 additional? Just throwing it out there. Not to extend our night, just for...
We can do that. If we car pass one free.
One free, I would say the first one boat free pass, like what it says up above.
The first boat.
Because what you're gonna do is you're gonna add a free car pass for the senior, and then you're gonna go $2 an additional car. And you go 1 free boat pass for the senior, $20 additional, and then down below you're almost the same except for
First boat pass.
the first boat pass could be free. I don't know how many boats we get multiples of this. I'm just saying. Clarity.
What are people's thoughts on
Part of that change.
I'm fine. Good with that. Give them a free car pass. One first boat free.
Right.
Just like the seniors.
that? John, what do you think?
I agree with that.
Yeah.
So same as senior?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I guess the other thing is to make sure they're educated to identify veterans.
Well, right, and that's so hard when you get a senior and a veteran, and seniors is price, and you know what I mean, you've got
Right.
kids running the gate,
Communities,
yeah.
right.
Any other changes? I would like to move to approve the new fee schedule as amended.
Okay.
On that seniors, I know I'm not supposed to tell you, but on the senior 60+, you've got 1 free car pass, but there's no $2 additional car.
We're adding that.
Yeah, we're adding that.
We're adding
You're
that,
adding
yeah.
it?
Yeah, I understand.
Did anybody second it?
Yeah.
Second, yeah, I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The contract negotiations with the chief, we have done in non-public. And so I think that since we are going to discuss some changes that came about through the public hearing, that we should do those in non-public. Does the board agree with that? Since we originally had the discussions in non-public. Is there any objection?
I think it's C.
Then,
Can I just say one other thing?
You people speak up, because it appears to us back here in the back seat, that you're mumbling. Open your mouth and speak clearly, please.
I keep trying, Betty, I really do.
I know,
It's like
some
I've
of you
been,
are, but some of you still
Um,
need to be
talking through your teeth rather than opening your mouth.
Has anybody here met the superintendent from Turnstone? Because I know that, you kept mentioning that the project manager was gonna be here all the time.
And that was a misconception on my
Right.
part. What I wanted to make sure of is that they weren't bringing in a person who was new to them, that somebody who had been on the job with them in other places as superintendent. If we hadn't talked superintendent's role before, because they're not part of the leadership team.
Okay.
But I did say that, and I did assume that Tony DeCosta would be the person on the job, but he would be overseeing it, but the superintendent would be someone different. No, I don't think.
And
No, Meridian
tonight,
came.
Bruce didn't say anything as the clerk of the works, and I just wondered if they really.
Can't hear you, Jim.
I can't hear you either.
Tonight that Bruce was here, the clerk of the works, and he really didn't say anything or add anything or bring out anything, and I really wonder, is he qualified for the position? And I'm only saying that I did run into Kevin Cahill, and he is willing to, he has the time to do the clerk of the works position. And I know that was your first choice, I don't know. Really up to everybody.
So did you go looking for him?
No, I didn't, I happened to see him.
It's a difficult position. We've made a commitment to a person.
Mm-hmm.
There's no contract.
There's no contract.
Public comments over.
I know.
All right.
This is something to discuss at this time. Have a conversation.
Right.
Talking about, someone that we could contract, I guess is a broad term, but we should put in a position. I think we should have a discussion.
Betty wants to hear you.
No.
I think we should have a discussion outside of this right now. It's not the proper time. This is the first, we're basically blindsided with it, so.
Correct.
Really?
Well, the fact that he's willing to
All of a sudden, we're
participate,
hearing
yes,
somebody,
it
we
is.
haven't heard from him.
Right, because when we offered it the job, he was not. So this is new news. And we're
And
just
we
finding
did,
out about this.
And, Kevin helped us through the process. He sat right where Naomi was sitting when we interviewed the contractors for the job and helped with a decision on choosing the contractor. Helped us vet the contractors and narrow it down to the two, and then was part of the interview of the two when we decided on Turnstone. So this is not in any way a reflection on his ability or our trust in him. It's just that it is a last minute thing that has been brought before us, and I don't think we
Well,
can
I
just
think
say.
Eldon had mentioned it too at one of the meetings, but not to, I believe that the reason he wasn't available last year, I don't know when he started doing the work that he's doing up at the college, but it had a lot to do with his preparation, and he wasn't able to do
Yeah,
it last
but
year.
again, that's,
I think that's a conversation we should have.
yeah, I
Right,
don't know if it's
no,
a
I-
conversation we're talking about a person
Right.
who's not
Yeah.
here. I don't
That's-
think
Yeah,
that.
Yeah.
and I don't.
But I just wanted to clarify
Well,
what was being discussed over
he-
there.
He got we put him in a position the last time because somebody mentioned his name. We don't want to do that again. And he was quite upset about it.
Well, you can take it upon yourselves to call and. Okay.
Again, it's an employment issue. I think that if we're going to discuss it, we should do it in public.
Can you read that, Tom?
If we're going to discuss an issue comparing two people, we should be doing it in non-public.
Under C.
Regardless, you have something that needs to be signed.
Okay, and this is, can you go through that for us before it's passed along?
Well, the first part is just the bond for $1.36 million that you have right here, indicating that they can be bonded, and they have a bond, and it's sitting right here.
Okay, so
That's the first part. Second part is an AIA document that talks about the construction, talks about the design build phase. It was run before town council and between Primex and town council and their council. This is what we have. Attached is A, which is the GMP with a budget. Attached to that is Exhibit B, which you people have all seen for a long time. And Exhibit C is a set of plans, and I didn't bring them down, but I think they were folded up the last time. It's the set of plans it talks about. Exhibit C is plan specification and addendums, and I didn't bring that down here, but the main part that they're looking for is to proceed on the design build for the 1.36 million. Now, this does have my name on it. I could care. You could toss my name off there and have the chair sign, or you could give me authority to sign, however you want to do it. But it's a document that I think it's fair that they supplied us with a bond for 1.36, and it's our obligation to build the building. The building will be here in 4 weeks. Yeah?
Isn't this already signed?
The architectural part of it, not this one. This is the actual build.
Design bill?
Right.
I think that, offering my opinion on some of the discussion that's come before would invite other people to do the same. I can't agree with not building out the building, leaving a part of it off unfinished. I think we're asking to put our money in jeopardy by doing that. I think the building has to be built out in its entirety. And, but I think we can look at that possibility still. To me, I understand what they're saying, but I can't picture the design of the building in such a way as to where that additional firewall will go.
8 inches thick.
Yeah, 8 inches thick. I mean, if it can go between two of the garage doors, okay, you've got 3 bays, that wall, and 3 bays. If it can go there, if there's no reason it can't, I think that we should look at that. It makes sense to me. But
You stretch the building.
You have to stretch the
You have to stretch the building.
That's what the cost.
That's what they said.
That's what they said. You have to stretch the building because it's already
I heard
tight
what
now.
You won't be
Yeah.
able to get the
You can't put an 8-inch wall in with what they've got.
Unless you configure the truck differently, put the 6 wheels
It
in
says
one
it's
bay,
the width.
different width.
It's
The 6 wheels have a lesser,
But it's still the
footprint.
width, they're figuring on the width with the wing plows on
Right.
and stuff.
that's what I'm saying, those.
I'm not
wheels have a
proposing to hold
smaller-
anything up. I
Yeah.
just say, let's take another look at it.
I'm not saying it's
No.
not something you
Thank
could
you.
look at, but I just I don't know. I mean, we heard tonight you gotta stretch the
You're
building.
gonna have to stretch it. That came from
It may not be possible.
Right.
But I don't want to sit here and say, forget about it
Right.
without taking.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Right. I would like to, I mean, obviously right now, fire suppression's out as of it stands today. And I would, I'd be in favor of that second firewall, the 1 hour wall. Again, it's gonna come to dollars and cents on pushing that building another 8 inches. I don't see the cost. I honestly don't myself. The cost, I don't see why you have to go build that building another whatever, because a 6-wheeler and a 10-wheeler are the same width. They're only 96 inches. I mean, the width doesn't change. The length changes, but the width changes. No, the same. They're the same. They're 10 foot.
11, 10, 11.
Yeah, 11 or 10. They don't have 12s and 12-foot wings.
Look at it, but there's no way we can extend the building out 8 inches because.
It's already been ordered.
First of all, it's already been
It's already been
ordered.
Yeah.
And second, it doesn't come in 8-inch segments.
Right. No, I know that.
Right.
I get that. I totally get that.
Because I think if you start trimming, you're gonna be really, really tight to get in the doors.
Maybe, but I mean.
That's only my thought.
It's something we can still look at after.
I'm not saying we don't, yeah.
Yeah.
I think you do look
Maybe
at it.
something with the way that the structure of the building lines up, the upper structure might not line up with the door frames, and that might be what they're talking about too, but I don't.
Because the other thing, Tom, too, is I've been in the business of firewalls. You can build that out drywall. It would be a lesser amount of thickness.
Well, that
Fire
would,
safing, steel studs, 2 layers of
Yeah.
drywall.
As long as it meets commercial code, I don't see
Right.
why it wouldn't.
That's a lesser, couple inches, it's,
yeah, and again, I think it depends on what is above it, as
Yeah.
far as how.
I think
it
that,
ties
yeah, he
in
was
with
talking
the
about
structure.
running it into a piece of structural at the top, and he's gonna be off.
Right.
I think that's where it came
Yeah, I
in
think
to
that
play.
may have more to do with with the width of the truck, but again, I'm talking blindly here,
Right.
but
well, glad to see you looking at it again.
But we have to get moving, because we gotta get that excavated and, you know, foundation in, before we have a building here to put on, and working with sand and nothing. We were held up a little bit in taking down the old building because we had to wait for PSNH or Eversource to get there and,
We had to-
rewire so
right.
that our fuel system would be working.
Right.
So they couldn't disconnect from the old building.
And I believe we're back up. Yeah.
About an hour and a half.
Okay.
An hour and a half.
So now the rest of the building can come down.
Good.
Okay. Move to approve the, give town administrator permission to sign the documents for continuation. Is that all right, people? You don't want to sign it?
No, I'd rather have the chair sign it.
Yep.
That's fine.
Okay.
You just let me, I'll cross my name out and write his nice and neat.
Okay.
And I was gonna put this all on her shoulders.
Yeah, that's okay.
Nope.
And I won't make the motion.
Can't.
Someone else has to for him to sign though. One person.
That's pretty neat.
What? I almost wrote Frederick Hippler, so you be
Please
careful.
don't. No, please don't.
I told you I could do it neatly. You'll still have to make the motion. Oh, I'll take this. It just goes with it.
I was thinking that.
Now you can make the motion.
Make a motion that the chairman sign the A1A document, A141, 2014 Exhibit A, Design Build Amendment for Turnstone.
And the bond.
And the bond issue.
Well, I don't think it's up
But
to.
it's
I don't think
No,
there's-
there's
I
only
don't
one.
think
There's nothing to
there's
sign.
nothing to sign on the bond.
Okay.
They just get it from the insurance company.
Okay.
You seconding that?
No, I have not.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 No.
Okay, 4-1.
Yeah, there you go, Tom. That's where the tabs are signed here.
Can you give them a shout on this firewall?
I can, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I usually armed with paper clips, but not tonight. Oh, it's that one there.
There's one
That's
on
why.
it, so.
Jesus.
Okay.
Do you have any other business before you go into non-public?
I got a couple of things.
Okay. Sorry.
I have here a form from the patriotic celebration to close 114 off. Somebody needs to sign it. I'd assume not, because I'm on the committee.
Is that the same thing you usually do for the parade?
Yep.
It's for
Duck
it's
Pond to
yeah.
Center Street,
for the
Yeah,
parade,
For the state.
What day?
Parade, yeah.
For DOT, yeah.
What day?
July 15th.
July 15th.
Move to have the chairman sign the documents for the patriotic celebration to close 114 from Duck Pond to
Center Street.
Center Street on the date of July 15th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Should it not? Should it just be for the parade route? Nobody wants to know that it's closed from 114 on the
Yeah,
whole
for the
day.
parade.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For the parade times only.
yeah. Yeah, so,
I can take that back and get it mailed in.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
other
they-
thing I
they-
have, I went to a class Saturday over the New Hampshire Municipal Association, and I came out of it with a nice 2-page form for going and coming out of non-public. I'd like to see if maybe the town could adopt it. It's a lot, I think it makes it a lot easier because I've done it myself. It's a lot easier to check.
So are they suggesting we actually file this form with the minutes?
Yeah, well, you can put the minutes right on the back. It's all in one.
Yeah.
You just check off on the front what you go in for and who did it, and it's all self-explanatory. I'd like to see all the boards in town adopt something like that. But that's up to whoever. Pass it on to Naomi or whatever.
John, could we make copies of that for the board and
Yeah,
then
something
we'll
like
look
that.
at it beginning
Look at it in a
next
couple weeks.
meeting?
Yeah.
2 weeks from now.
Didn't we used to use something like that, similar?
Approves their non-public.
Or was that Board of Fire Wards? Maybe it was Board of Fire Wards. John, did we use that at Board of Fire Wards?
No, he used the same
Not
form.
that, no.
Oh, okay.
I just got it set.
I thought we used something similar.
It was similar.
Right. I remember you used a check sheet though to go in.
Yeah.
So you want copies for, and then discuss in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Who seconded that motion?
For the
Rick?
patriotic?
Anything?
I'm all set.
Okay. Move to go into non-public under, what will be under for negotiations here?
C.
C?
A and C.
A and C. A and C.
Afterwards adjourn.
No, I have a C after that.
After the non-publics will adjourn.
Second, yeah.
What I was gonna have, Naomi do make copies of that
Yeah.
for us?
Oh, excuse me. Yep.
John?
Oh my God, I have 12 text messages.
Non-public, yes.
Oh, yes, okay.
Aye.
Just thought we would,
Aye.
you don't get it.
9:45 is what we're using.
Mm-hmm.